So many cooks in the kitchen, so many recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen with ideas we're happy to share.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our next episode of So Many Cooks in the Kitchen. Today, the episode is about heart healthy foods. My name is Dilip Barman. I'm a Food for Life instructor in Durham, North Carolina. Food for Life is a nutrition education program of the Physicians Committee of Responsible Medicine. We are a number of instructors, the Food for Life instructors, who are passionate about whole food, plant-based cooking. We're very interested in nutrition, and we love to share the information. We teach a variety of classes. So if this is the first time for you, we do these shows every month. We go kitchen to kitchen, and we present different topics. This month, Heart Healthy Foods, we decided to do because of Valentine's Day. I found it a little bit difficult because the way we recommend eating, whole food, plant-based eating with limited fat, all of it is heart healthy. So it took me a while to figure out what I would make. And the funny story is I decided to work with beets, and so did many of the other instructors. So today we present beets. Some of us present beets. There's also other topics. I love beets. Beets are very nutrient dense. For a serving of beets, which is 3.5 ounces, 100 grams, it has less than 60 calories, but it has about 2 grams of protein, 2 grams of fiber, and we do recommend eating about 40 grams of fiber a day. Fiber is a really good food. It helps keep you regular, and it has all sorts of beneficial properties. And most Americans, and I know this is going out across the world, I dare say most people don't get enough fiber. You do need to eat a lot of fiber. So 1 serving of beets is 2 grams of fiber. You get about 20% of your recommended daily allowance for folate. It's also a good source of manganese, potassium, and iron, and vitamins A and C. And as you know, beets are full of pigment. So here is kind of the classic deep red beet. You can see the beautiful leaves and the beet root. The pigment is great. And here is some golden beets. You can see the beets here and the leaves. Pigments are great, and but they can be a problem, and we'll talk about how to avoid being stained by beets. The pigments help with decreasing inflammation. They slow premature aging. They're high in antioxidants and are cancer fighting. They also have significant nitrates, not nitrites, but nitrates, which dilate the blood vessels, make the blood vessels bigger, which decreases the blood pressure. One minor point about that is the action of the nitrates is short-lived. So in terms of ongoing blood pressure issues, you'll want to eat beets regularly. I think the blood pressure decrease lasts for about 6 hours after having a serving of beets. When you buy beets, you want to buy something that's rich in color. Look at all this gorgeous color here, and I haven't even cut it open. You want something rich in color. You want something that isn't bruised and doesn't have wet spots. This does have wet spots because I just washed it, right? At the market, you want to avoid bruised areas and wet spots and that are soft. I don't know why, but a lot of times in the market, they remove the leaves. The leaves are, I think they remove them so they can put more on the display. But if you can get it with the leaves, it's better. The leaves are tasty. You can eat them raw. I like to gently saute them, put them on a cast iron pan and gently cook them, braise them. You don't want to cook them too much because the pigment will drain and you will lose a lot of the nutrition. So what I do with beets is, let's talk about the stains. You notice on my counter, I've used some parchment paper. You may or may not be familiar with parchment paper, but I don't like to use aluminum foil for a variety of reasons. I like parchment paper when I bake things. I'll sometimes put parchment paper on the bottom and I bake on top of that, or I can wrap things. For example, if I roast a beet, traditionally people will put maybe foil on their beets. I prefer parchment paper. It's inexpensive. I think this 72 square foot container box of parchment paper may have cost me $4 or something of that nature. So I've spread some parchment paper on my counter with my cutting board underneath it to avoid staining. With a beet, I like if you can find small beets because they cook faster, they're more tender. So this is a golden beet. And what I was doing while the music was playing is I was peeling the beet. You're going to find beets are pretty dirty. And so what I like to do is I like to use some sort of a brush, and I like to put it under water, and I like to scrub it to get it as clean as I can. And then if you're going to chop it, you want to peel it. And then I am going to just show you how to chop a beet. This is a tender one. So I cut the very top off, and the very bottom I'm also going to cut off. Be careful because it's hard and you can easily slip through the beet and cut yourself. So I like to use the bear claw technique like this. With the bear claw technique, I'm holding it this way, and I've cut through the beet. I can compost this, put it in the sink for now. And then here's my beet. Again, it's a small beet. And then what I do is I either use a chef's knife or a serrated knife, and I go straight through. And depending on what I'm cooking, but this is cut pretty small. When it's cut this small, this is like 1/2 inch or less. This will cook, if you put it in boiling water, this will cook 5 minutes or so, 5-7 minutes. It won't take long at all. So I wanted to cut a beet just to show you. This is a small beet, so that's how you can prepare it. But you know, there's an easier way to prepare beets, and that is you just cook them. So what I could do is I could maybe boil this beet or pressure cook it. And then when I'm done, like this one, I pressure cooked it, and you can see it's lost some color. This is the original, and this is the pressure cooked. So you do lose some of the nutrition and some of the beautiful color when you cook it. So you want to minimize the cooking. But I've cooked this, and I took it out of my pressure cooker. This was 10 minutes in the pressure cooker. And then what you do is you go under running water, and I'll start to do it. You go under running water, and you simply rub it. And if you, I don't know if you can see, I won't complete the task right now. Sorry about my throat. I don't know why I have a little frog in my throat. But as you rub it, the skin will come off very easily. I didn't complete doing it. There's a little bit of skin left, but that's what you can do. Okay. So in terms of preparation, you can start with raw beets. You want to peel it, and then you can grate it into a salad. I don't do that often, but that's one option. Another thing that you can do is you can pressure steam it whole. And by pressure steam, I mean if you have a pressure cooker, like my Instant Pot here, what I do is I put a rack of some sort to put the food above the water level. I put enough water so it's not touching the rack, and I pressure steam it. And I steam it for, depending on the size of the beet, this really will be done in like 7 minutes. But in general, I say 10 to 20 minutes, 10 to 20, 25, 30 minutes, okay? It's better to steam less, and then you can always steam it a little bit more. Another way to prepare beets is to boil it, put it in any old pan, put it in boiling water, 30 to 60 minutes, depending on the size of the beet. And if it's pressure cooked, if you're not steaming it, you're actually putting it in the liquid, then you can cut the time in about half. You can also roast it. So what I do is I take the beet whole, I cover it in some parchment paper, and then I put it in an oven, 400 degrees, for about 40 to 60 minutes, depending on the size of your beet. Something this small would be 20, 25 minutes, half an hour at most. Or you can chop it like I have here. And then I like to mix it with other things like garlic and onions. You'll find a lot of recipes for roasted peppers talk about maybe some oil, but you really don't need the oil. What I do is I put a little bit of soy sauce or coconut aminos, maybe a little bit of citrus. I love citrus, and a little bit of salt, a little bit of herbs, and then put it in your oven, 400 degrees, and it will be roasted if it's pieces in 20 to 30 minutes. So that's another great way to prepare beets. Okay, so, and as I said, the greens don't last as long as the roots. So when you buy beets, what I recommend, I bought this last night, is I recommend that you cut the beets here. The beet roots will store in the refrigerator or really in any cool area for a long time, certainly a month, maybe longer, shouldn't be a problem. The greens, however, you should use within 3 to 5 days. They don't last that long, and it's every bit of it's edible, the stem and the leaf, and it's tasty. Try sauteing some of it, putting it on a sandwich, something like that. Today's dish, and all the recipes are available. We will be sure to post that. We have posted it, and we'll post it again. So today's dish, what I did is I made a beet dish with beans and greens. And I've made it here. And what I did is I took some chickpeas. So here's some dried chickpeas. I soaked these overnight with plenty of water. got rid of the water, and I pressure cooked it for 10 minutes. Actually, what I did is I decanted the water, and then I added chopped beets like this. I added some garlic, and I added some greens. And you can use any green you want. I actually happen to have this handy. I didn't use these, but this is some beautiful rainbow chard, which is available in the market right now. But I used frozen spinach whole, and I pressure cooked that with a can of diced tomatoes. So all these rich colors. Tomatoes are full of lycopenes, also very cancer fighting. And now this is done. I pressure cooked it for 10 minutes. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some onion. So I have about a quarter to half cup of onion. I'm going to put that in. I'm going to add a little bit of herbs. So I call for fresh herbs or dried herbs. So I have a grinder. So I'm going to grind some herbs in here. I'm going to add some lemon pepper. I love lemon pepper. So a little bit of lemon pepper. Really add seasonings that you like. This isn't in the recipe, but I'm going to add just a teeny bit of smoked paprika. Smoked paprika can be strong, so I will add maybe a quarter teaspoon or a half teaspoon. Let's add a little more garlic powder as well. And then you can add salt to taste. So let me get some salt. Just add a little bit of salt. So I generally don't measure, but my recipes, I have put measurements for other people. And finally, the thing I'm going to add is some lemon juice. So I am so lucky because where I live here in North Carolina, we have a co-op, and this is more than a week old, so it's shriveled a bit, but this is a Meyer lemon, and I prefer to buy organic. This is biodynamic and organic. And if you don't know what a Meyer lemon is, it's like a cross between an orange and a lemon. So I'm going to slice the Meyer lemon. So juicy and so tasty. And I will try to tease out some of the seeds. I'm going to squeeze the Meyer lemon juice in. And you know what? It's in the recipe. I'm going to add a teeny bit of turmeric. Turmeric is also very good for us. I don't particularly like the flavor of turmeric in this dish, so I'm just going to add a little bit, maybe a half teaspoon, just to get some of the nutritional benefits. And I'm going to mix this in. And there you see my dish. I'm going to invite my daughter to join us and try it. Again, I use golden beets. Golden beets don't stain as much, so I prefer golden beets. But if you use red beets like I have, then you'll have even richer color. It'll be kind of nice with the red tomato and the different shade of red and purple for the beets. There's so many kinds of beets. You can get also rainbow beets. You can get striped beets, many kinds. So my daughter, Anu, I'm going to grab a bowl for you. Come here, sweetie. Tell us what your name is.
My name is Anu. You already said that.
So Anu is a kid in the kitchen. We have a program where every other month they cook. So, sweetie, what is the program next month? Next week?
Yes, it's about winter foods.
And have you decided what you're going to be making next week?
I think I'm going to be making soup.
Excellent. So stay tuned. It's next Saturday at 12:30. And our shows with the kids are shorter. They're 1-hour shows. So how are the beets and greens and beans? Excellent. Good. And you can substitute any other bean. You can use, I like to use a light colored bean. So something like cannellini bean or maybe a Great Northern bean would go great with this. So feel free to ask questions. I'm about to sign off. We are at the end, after all of us cook, we're going to have a Q&A session, but we're also answering questions live. So with that, I'm delighted to pass the baton to my colleague, Janin Orhun in Italy, and she's going to be making a Valentine breakfast pancake. Take it away, Janin.
Hi, Dilip. That sounded so interesting, everything you said about beets. And I happen to be cooking with beets too. Hello, everybody, and welcome to my kitchen in Italy, where it's nighttime. Most of you are enjoying an afternoon in the UK, in the US. So I'm today making pink pancakes. I call them my Heart Healthy Pancakes, La Vie en Rose, as they say, seeing the world through pink glasses. Maybe you recall, if you've watched our first show ever, when we talked about legumes, I cooked with red lentils because they're my go-to legume. And lentils are very heart healthy, along with the beets. And when we did our lentil show, I had made a simple soup, and I said, well, maybe one of these days I'll share with you how versatile they are by showing you that you can even make pancakes with red lentils. So here we are. I'm making red lentil pancakes. This is a recipe I developed during cooking school when they had asked us to make a different dish with ordinary ingredients that we regularly use in our cooking. And for me, it was rice and red lentils. And thinking about what I can do, I decided I would use the red lentils for pancakes. So at that time, I used a coffee grinder and ground my red lentils and my rice in a coffee grinder to obtain them in a flour consistency. For this episode, I sort of cheated and bought myself already made red lentil flour and rice flour. And here we are. These pancakes are basically, you can use my recipe, or you can add to your recipe, your existing recipe, red beets, if you're only interested in the beets part. So what we do is that we take half a cup of red lentil flour, 1 cup of rice flour, and preferably brown rice flour. And before you start everything, you take 1 tablespoon of linseeds, flax seeds, and soak them with 3 tablespoons of water and set them aside. They're going to be the eggs in your batter. And then I used my high-speed blender, a little Ninja, and in it I put 1.5 cups of vegetable milk. Today I used oat milk, and a half a cup of already cooked beets. And you see it gives a beautiful pink color, and that same beautiful pink color goes on to the batter. First, just like in other pancake recipes, you mix the dry ingredients, and then, of course, you mix separately the wet ingredients, and then you put the two together and obtain a beautiful batter, just as you see here. And then with it, cook your pancakes. This recipe that I've given you makes about 24 small pancakes, and I like making small ones. And it's good to get your pan nice and hot before you start making your pancakes, but I'm sure you've all made pancakes and you know those steps. I thought, okay, I'll share it with you. So why beets in pancakes? So as Dilip talked about it, beets are very heart healthy. They are high in fiber to start with, and they help to move things along, so to speak. Beets also have antioxidants. These antioxidants help fight the free radicals and help us healthier. And they're very high in betaine and folate, which lower the homocysteine, which could damage the, which lowers the risk of heart problems. And they are also rich in nitrates, as he had said. So a little bit of repetition, I think, is good. Nitrates, once we eat them, they turn into nitric oxide. And nitric oxide helps keep our veins very healthy. They become like super highways for the flow of blood. And what else makes these pancakes healthy? We have, of course, the flax seeds. Flax seeds are also high in fiber, but they're also very, very high in omega-3s. 1 small tablespoon of flax seeds give you about 1,500 milligrams of omega-3s. And it's better to use your flax seeds all ground up, and because that's when we can really absorb the nutrients from it. And for this purpose too, I use a coffee grinder, just as using the same coffee grinder for red lentils and rice. So the omega-3s, the fiber, and all the goodness from flax seeds come to us too. Another reason why these pancakes are heart healthy is because when we make the batter, we don't add any oil to it. Oil is not good for our artery functions, and even the healthiest of oils is not good for us. I'm going to stop making the pancakes now because I want to save this for tomorrow morning breakfast, Sunday breakfast. What better thing to eat for breakfast than pancakes? It's really late at night now, so we won't be eating these pancakes tonight. With all these heart healthy ingredients, we have a beautiful heart-shaped pancake, which I like serving with a sprinkling of walnuts, which are also very high in omega-3s. And in its whole form, the oils in it are also healthier for us. And some, of course, some beautiful North American maple syrup, which we get here in thimblefuls in Italy. I'm lucky when I buy a bottle this big. It's a treat. So surprise your loved ones, especially little ones. They enjoy. Look at these, they're so pretty. Pretty pink. Or you can, if you have a pancake frame, you can make heart-shaped ones and enjoy your Valentine breakfast with a healthy start. I'd just like to let you know that this batter, I don't put any sugar in it, and it's quite neutral. So if you want, you can use this batter also for savory dishes, where you can add some spices or something and use it for another purpose, not just for breakfast pancakes. What's Valentine's Day without your Valentine? And I'd like to today, in honor of the song, La Vie en Rose, which I had heard from my grandma when I was a little girl, I would like to invite the cameraman, the light man, who's helping me at each episode, my husband and my Valentine, and we have La Vie en Rose playing. So before I say arrivederci, I would like to say it's always a pleasure to cook for you all and share what we know. And I would like to pass the baton to Stacy Heine in Noblesville, Indiana. Arrivederci, and remember to do this at home. Beautiful pancakes.
Those looked so beautiful. Thank you, Janan. Those are going to be on my list of things to make for sure on Valentine's Day morning. I have never used red lentils flour, I don't think, to bake with anything. So that was a really great idea. Well, today I'm going to continue the beet saga, and I'm going to talk about and make for you a very simple earthy roasted beet hummus. So if you have never made hummus with beets, today is a great day to do it. I am using a red beet that I roasted in the oven. In the directions of my recipe, I explained how to do it on a baking sheet with a glass jar on top to keep the moisture in. However, if you can't roast a beet, it's totally okay. You can just boil it and still get a lovely earthy red hummus. Or if you're using golden beets, then of course your hummus is going to be golden. But no matter what, make sure that you are consuming beets. As we've been talking about, there are so many health benefits, and I cannot tell you enough about the nitric oxide that it helps our body produce. So when we are talking about eating nitrates, we are talking about getting them from plants. When you eat nitrates from animal products, it actually damages your endothelial cells, which damages your cardiovascular system, increasing your risk for heart disease. So we want to make sure we're getting this nitric oxide from plants. We're creating it from plants, okay? And beets are one of the highest sources beet greens even higher. All right, let's get into it. This is a very easy recipe, like I said, so it's gonna go really fast. I have 1 roasted beet, and I'm putting that in my food processor. I'm just going to zhuzh it up a little bit so that it chops the beet up just enough so that when I mix it all together, it'll be pretty smooth. All right, so that was fast, and there we go. Now, I'm going to add 1 can's worth, or about 1.5 cups worth of chickpeas or garbanzo beans. If you don't have chickpeas, it's totally okay. You can use cannellini beans or navy beans even. Really, honestly, any bean is gonna be good, but cannellini or garbanzo beans or chickpeas, AKA chickpeas, are gonna make the traditional hummus. So I'm gonna add that in along with cumin. Now, I used cumin in my black bean soup last month because I'm obsessed with it. It's such an earthy, delightful flavor that you can add to any dish that you want more depth to. So I love that I added cumin, about a tablespoon. And then I'm going to get some tahini in. Now, tahini is made from ground sesame seeds, and I always use raw tahini if I can find it, just because it's more antioxidant. It's more potent in its antioxidants, which help us fight against disease. And tahini is really high in calcium and fiber and micronutrients that we don't otherwise get. So I encourage you to try some tahini if you haven't before. I'm also adding 2 cloves of minced garlic that I used my trusty garlic mincer with. My dad got this for me, and he also introduced me to a microplaner, which I'm going to then use for my citrus. So if you don't have a microplaner, it's okay, but I'm going to use this for my citrus to zest it. You can also use a knife to just slice a little bit of the rind off, the skin of the lemon, to get a really potent, bright flavor, okay? But I'm gonna use this microplaner. These are amazing. You should get yourself one. Just go on Amazon and find yourself a microplaner, or better yet, go to a local food cooking store and support your local people and get yourself a microplaner. Totally worth it. You can zest lots of different things. You can even garnish like desserts with this and put little chocolate shavings on the top. So I'm gonna just zest the whole lemon, and then I'm gonna use the juice of the whole lemon. And then it's going to be done. We're gonna mix it all up, and our hummus will be done. I'm not as lucky as Dilip with the Meyer lemons. I really wish that I lived in a warm place that had gave me access to citrus fruits like this all year round. But I just got a tropical fruit box delivered to me, so I am good to go on my tropical fruit for at least a week. Okay, so the name of the game with this hummus is that it's oil-free. And so if I need more fluid, once I get this all mixed up, I'm just gonna simply add some vegetable broth, or you could add the bean juice or just water. But I like veggie broth for flavor. So just one little tip when you are using, or when you are making a hummus without oil, just use a cold liquid. It actually helps the hummus become more creamy, and it will give you a more desirable texture. So I'm going to just scrape the edge of this and finish it off, but I want to show you how bright and beautiful it is before I make it really extra smooth. but this is going to be awesome. You could leave it chunky if you want, or you can just continue moving it around in your food processor. You can also use a blender if you don't have a food processor, super foolproof, or just even like a potato masher, just something to make the chickpeas get really soft. And that is earthy roasted beet hummus. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you incorporate beets into your daily life, even if you have to use a beet powder and bake with it so you don't taste them if you don't like the taste. But I think that with all of these amazing recipes today, you're going to totally transform your taste buds with all the things that we have to offer. So up next is Karen Osborne from Austin, Texas, and she's going to be making a delightful salad. I cannot wait to see the recipe for that. So thank you so much. Be well and have a great Valentine's Day.
Thanks, Stacy. That looks beautiful. So yeah, like Dilip was saying, the effects of the nitric oxide last about 6 hours. So there's a good way to get beets for lunch. Here's a good way to have beets for dinner. Reverse it. Good, you know, instead of taking a pill every 6 hours, have a little beet. All right, so I am Karen Osborne, like she said, in Austin, Texas, and I am going to make a really delicious, simple start for your yummy Valentine's Day dinners that can include all of these recipes. Every ingredient that I have in here is heart healthy. And I'm just gonna go over the ingredients really quick. We have sweet potatoes that I've gone ahead and diced, and we are going to roast them, but they're full of fiber. Everything I've got here has fiber, and vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. Helps you feel full and manage your weight, helps lower cholesterol. The sweet potatoes also have magnesium and potassium, which help regulate your blood pressure. Then I'm going to, let's just talk about it as we go. All right, so what I'm gonna do with the sweet potatoes, I'll put them in a bigger bowl than you think you need. I'm just gonna put a little bit of thyme and onion powder. So even the thyme is heart healthy. I saw a study where they actually lowered the cholesterol in rats with thyme. So besides tasting good, it's good for you. All the herbs are really good for you, the herbs and spices. All right. So then I'm going to put a little bit of onion powder in here just for the flavor and the texture. So the powder just kind of coats the sweet potatoes. And I'm going to use a little bit of salt, but if you're not using salt, that is fine. You can leave it out. And then I'm just going to shake instead of stirring it with a spoon, because this will get a nice coating, a real thin coating of the seasonings. And then I'm not scraping it off with a metal spoon. So once you've got that pretty dispersed, we're going to take a cookie sheet lined with parchment paper and just spread the sweet potatoes on. And in a minute, I'm going to roast them at 400 degrees. But first, I'm going to show you what I did. I took a couple of beets and washed them and then wrapped them in the parchment paper. Just gave it a little twist and put them on the cookie sheet with the sweet potatoes. So then I roast everything. So it depends on how small your dice is. The smaller you dice the sweet potatoes, the quicker they're going to get done. So you might want to put the beets on a separate cookie sheet because you might need to take the sweet potatoes out first. But just going to roast them for about an hour. Just keep checking. And then when the beets are done, just keep it wrapped up for about at least 15 minutes until it's cool enough that you can handle it. So what you're looking for is the beet to be a little bit soft. And then you can unwrap it. And like Dilip was showing, you can just rub the skin off. And I don't have access to my sink right here, but I'm just going to take a paper towel and rub the skin off. I'm going to put my screen down so you can see. So it comes off really easily. You can do it with your fingers, but I just didn't want to decorate my fingers right now. All right, so that's pretty much it. Skin is removed. And then you can either, I'm going to slice this one in about 1/4-inch slices. And then if you want, you can just go ahead and slice them into, like cut them in half and place them on your salad, and then put half of them in the blender. But I am going to, for Valentine's Day, take this little heart-shaped cookie cutter or food cutter and make little heart shapes. And we're just going to place the leftover, my hearts, already done one beat. So we're just going to place the rest of it in the blender, and we're going to use that for part of our dressing. So I'm going to make some hearts really quick. And the dressing is very simple. It's just beets and an orange, a whole orange. So oranges have an antioxidant called hesperidin, and that actually helps keep your blood vessels healthy. And the beets and the orange have pectin, so we don't need to add any oil to thicken our dressing. The more we blend it, the thicker it's going to get. So I have my beets, and I'm just going to put my whole orange that I've sliced into 4 pieces. And then I'm going to add a little bit of apple cider vinegar for kick. I have a little more onion powder and another 1/4 teaspoon of salt. But again, if you're not using salt, you can leave it out. And then I have freshly grated ginger, which I did on the microplane. It is a really handy tool, Stacy. Okay, and that is it for the dressing. So I'm going to blend it up nice and smooth. Make a little noise. And you can see what a beautiful color that is. All right, so we're ready to assemble the salad. So I have arugula, which also has nitrates, which convert to the nitric oxide. And then I'm going to just sprinkle some of the sweet potatoes that I've roasted beforehand. Put the red onions, which have first, I like to dice them really small so that you get flavor in every bite, but it's not too much in any one bite. And then I have blueberries. You can use fresh or frozen. Give you a pop of flavor. Also antioxidants. Very, really heart healthy. And last, my roasted beets. So roasting them that way in the parchment paper, they get kind of a smoky, sweet flavor. if you want a little crunch in your salad, I've got just a little bit of walnuts, which are, Heart Healthy omega-3. And then I like to put the dressing in a squeeze bottle and just drizzle it on. It's really pretty. I'm just going to pour it from the blender right now to save time. You can, if you like, I mean, I think this color is really pretty. But if you want more of a contrast with those beets, you can take just a little bit of plant-based yogurt and put it in there. I'm just gonna put a little of the dressing in here and show what it kind of looks like. But I really like it kind of like a vinaigrette. This is also a sweet, pretty dressing to put on top. So I'm just going to, and you be generous with the dressing, it's really good. And there we have a heart healthy first course for your Valentine's dinner. And thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you will try it. Now we're going to go to Greenville, South Carolina. Angelita Hughes making corn and beet tortillas with a cabbage taco filling and pico de gallo. Take it away, Angelita.
Thank you, Karen. I can't wait to try that. It just looks absolutely beautiful. So today I'm carrying on the same theme. So I'm using beets as well. I'm using them in a little different way. I'm incorporating them with the corn tortilla. The recipe, all the instructions will be on the recipes, and the recipes have been posted. But I had to do this a little bit ahead of time because I have to let the corn masa kind of rest. So what I do is take the 2 cups of the corn or the maseca, and I take beets, and you can cook them in any way that the Food for Life instructions just showed you. You can roast them, boil them, however you choose to cook them, and you can still use them in to make the puree for the tortillas. So what you do is you liquefy them with a little bit of water or vegetable stock, whichever you prefer. You're going to warm it up, and then you're going to pour 1-to-1 ratio. So 1 cup of masa harina to 1 cup of the beet puree. You're going to mix that all up with a little bit of salt if you want to. Salt just kind of brings out the brightness. To me, it's very important in this way of cooking, especially with tortillas. You don't want them to be bland. So you mix it up, wear gloves because your hands will stain. And you mix it up until it feels like Play-Doh, really soft but not sticky. You don't want it to stick to your fingers. You're going to let it rest for a little bit, then you're going to divide it equally. I usually get about 8 to 10 tortillas out of 2 cups. So you roll them up into a little ball, and look at that beautiful color. I mean, isn't that pretty? It's absolutely gorgeous. I love it. You're going to place it on your tortilla press, which this is it. This was a gift to me from my sister, so it's a little bit special to me. And you're going to place it in between 2 little pieces of plastic because you don't want the dough to stick to the tortilla press. So what you do is you put your piece of plastic, you put your ball of dough, put your other piece of plastic on top of it, and just press down a little bit. Bring this part over, and I'm going to have to sit this down. You're going to bring the arm over that part, and you're just going to press gently because those masa balls are kind of gentle. And then you're going to peel it off like this, and you're going to put it onto, I use a cast iron, and you're just going to lay it down. Leave it that way for about 45 seconds, depending on how hot it gets. And then you're going to do another one. Usually by the time you do the second one, the one that you just laid down is ready. to be flipped. If you didn't apply enough pressure to it, then you can flip it over and apply pressure to it again. So here's my second one. I put that one down, and the first one I put should be ready to flip. And you're gonna see nice little browning on top of it. So you let them cook for about 30, 45 seconds on each side. You're gonna flip it over 2 or 3 times. Don't overcook it, because then they will get kind of hard. And then you're gonna put it in between, you're gonna put it in a cotton towel. And I've got this little tortilla keeper that I bought in Mexico. And so this is what the finished tortillas look like. They're very pliable. They're wonderful. They finish cooking in the steam, so make sure that you cover them and use cotton. Cotton works great for that. For the cabbage, taco filling is I used just green cabbage, just like this. I shredded it and I cooked it with onions. I do not use any oil. So I put a little bit of vegetable broth in my pan. I added my onions, let those cook till they were a little bit translucent. Then I added my cabbage. I lowered that the heat down to probably medium. And then I added all my spices to it and then just let it all cook until the majority of the liquid was absorbed. Cabbage is full of fiber. It's really good for you. I eat a lot of cabbage. I put raw cabbage on my tacos also for the extra crunch. And I've been eating cabbage since since I was living at home, since I was a child. And it's been one of my favorite things. One thing with the tortillas, you're gonna see that it starts puffing. I don't know if you can see it or not. So that's a sign of a good tortilla. There's an old wives' tale that says if your tortillas fluff when you're cooking them, means your mother-in-law is gonna like you. And if they don't puff up, that means your mother-in-law is not gonna like you. So don't let your mother-in-law know if it's puffed or not. Just kidding. Okay, so now we've got the taco filling. The tortillas are done, and now we're gonna make pico de gallo. This is a raw salsa, or oh yeah, I call it a salsa. Everything's a salsa to me. All it is cilantro, tomates, onions, jalapeno peppers, garlic, and some lime juice. Now, the very important thing to your pico de gallo is you want to make sure that everything is diced up about the same size. You don't want your jalapenos being bigger than your onions and so forth, because it's the flavor is not going to balance. And with the jalapeno peppers, those are a little bit tricky. Some jalapeno peppers aren't very spicy. And then other ones, oh my goodness, you can't even feel your tongue after a while. So I prefer serrano peppers, but the way we used to make it growing up was definitely the jalapeno peppers. There's a lot of vitamins and minerals in this. Of course, with tomato, everybody before me has been telling you about all the beautiful nutritional properties of all of this. So we just take everything and put it in a bowl. Just pour it in there. And if you don't want if you're scared of the jalapenos being too spicy, just go ahead and take out the veining on the inside and the seeds. And then you'll have the flavor of the jalapeno, but not too much of the heat. And if it's not spicy enough for you, you can always go back and add a little bit of the vein in there and the seeds. And you're gonna add a little bit of salt to this. Again, that's your choice. Lemon juice brightens everything up. Lime juice as well. If you don't have either one of those, then you can add some vinegar, apple cider vinegar to it. And if you made too much and you're scared it's going to go bad, you can take that leftover pico de gallo, put it in a pan with a little bit of vegetable stock and let it cook down till it's soft. Let it cool, put it in the blender, blend it up, and then you've made a nice salsa that'll last you a little bit longer. So anyway, this is what I have. I thank you guys for watching. And up next, we've got Mark, who is going to be making a vegan Valentine steak. Take it away, Mark.
Love me tender, love me sweet, never let me go. You have made my heart complete, and I love you so. Love me tender, love me true, all my dreams fulfill. For my darling, I love you, and I always will. Well, there's my Valentine's Day song to all you lovers and people that are in love or wish you were in love or were in love or just love to love. So welcome. So Mark Cirkvenick, Let's Eat Great Food, and part of this wonderful Food for Life group. Just learned so much, and I hope you do too. So today I'm going to make a little classic Valentine's meal, kind of the lover's meal: steak, baked potato, and broccoli. So steak, oh my gosh, steak. Well, this is a Valentine vegan steak, and it's made from seitan. And this seitan recipe is just a touch, a little bit more healthy than your regular seitan. So the way we're going to start this meal is in our blender. We're going to take, you'll see in my recipe that's all included on our Facebook page as part of today's show. You'll take the first 14 ingredients. So everything from canned chickpeas, nutritional yeast. I gotta pick my list up. It's so long, but it's a simple. And these are probably things you have in your pantry. So there's 3/4 of canned chickpeas, nutritional yeast, garlic powder, onion powder, cumin, coriander powder, oregano, liquid aminos, which is a little bit lower in sodium, and soy sauce. It has 16 essential amino acids. I like Bragg's liquid aminos. Tomato paste, paprika, black pepper, Dijon, liquid smoke, and vegetable stock. That goes all in the blender right here. So I've already started that a little bit. So it probably takes you a couple of minutes to do that, and then you just want to keep scraping it down. Now, with this, all you have to do is take it right out of your blender, and we're going to go ahead and scrape all these wonderful ingredients right into my bowl here. Watch how easy this is. All right. And if you could smell that smokiness from the liquid smoke and the smoked paprika, it's just absolutely wonderful. That's going to go all right in here. And then we're going to put 1 3/4 cups of Vital Wheat gluten. Vital Wheat gluten, you can get it at your local grocers. Bob's Red Mill makes a wonderful Vital Wheat gluten. Or you can go on our friends at the ever-present Amazon and buy some Vital Wheat gluten. So we're going to put that Vital Wheat gluten in here. We're just going to mix this all up. And now this is going to be the batter that you're going to start to make, the dough actually, that you're going to start to make the steak from. Now, this is where it's got to get a little dirty here. You got to get your hands in there, and don't be afraid to use your hands when you're mixing this up. What you're doing now is you're blending the flour, which is the Vital Wheat gluten, and all those wonderful spices and chickpeas and tomatoes and everything. And you're gonna just keep working it with your hands, and it's a lot of fun. So if you got kids, they'll probably love to make this with you, and then you could put them to bed, and you and your significant other could have a wonderful Valentine's dinner. All right, so I'm just going to work that. I want to collect up all of it. If you find a little bit of dryness in there, just drop a couple of tablespoons of oil. You just work that all in here. And now I've got this wonderful kind of hunk of Satan. And now comes the fun part. So if you're angry at your significant other, take your anger out on your Satan and beat it. So what you want to do is you want to flatten it out. You want to work it a little bit and then flatten it out. So you're going to flatten it out, beat it. See, I'm making beats too today, folks. So just beat it till it's about half an inch in thickness. All right. And don't worry about it being shaggy kind of on the ends, because that's kind of the way steaks are. They're not always, perfect, and it gives you a little bit of texture. And you don't want to overwork this either. All right. What you want is, because if you overbeat it, it's going to get really, really tough. So you just want to pull it a little bit, and if it pulls back like that, see the way you just kind of tug on it, and then it springs back. That's about how you want it. So I'm just going to press this flat. Now what we're going to do is to cut this into four steaks. All right, real easy. All we do is just cut it into 4 steaks like that. All right, 4 simple steaks. And now we want to form it like a little bit of a steak. All right, we just want to form it like a steak. And you'll notice it's kind of thin, but what happens with Satan and vital wheat gluten in general is when you cook it, you steam it, it puffs up. All right. So we're just going to form them kind of like little fillets, if you will. You can make them round. If you want to make it heart-shaped, it's kind of heart-shaped, huh? Kind of heart-shaped. You can make them heart-shaped, but I'm going to keep them kind of like fillets. You can make a petite fillet too if you want to make a kind of the old fat, the old filet mignon. When most of us were meat eaters at one point in our lives. I certainly was. My wife's been going through some pictures, and when I graduated from college, actually my graduate degree, my first one in 1986, had me sit in front of a big hunk of steak eating that, and I was like 24 years old back then. So anyways, so you can make different sizes. And now what we're going to do, folks, is just take and put it in some foil, and we want to loosely wrap some foil around it. You want to use foil in this instance because you want to constrict its growth when we cook these steaks. So just loosely wrap it in, but we want to constrict it a little bit. So that's why we're using foil. I sometimes will make other steak products, so I'll just wrap it in parchment paper, which is great, and that just lets it expand a little. But with this recipe, you want to use foil. You just wrap it up like so. See how easy this is? And we just wrap this up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to steam this. I'm going to show you my little contraption here. What I've got is I've got my an old cast iron pan, and I've got about 1 inch of water in the bottom of that. I just put my steaks in here just like that. Put the lid on it. And then put it on your burner and steam it for 20 minutes. That's all you're going to do. Steam it for 20 minutes. Now, after that, you're going to make, while it's being made, actually, I should say, you're going to make a marinade. Now, the marinade is listed as well in the recipe for my vegan Valentine steaks. And in the marinade, it's half a cup of aquafaba, which is the viscous liquid from chickpeas. And then I use a teaspoon of Chicago steak seasoning. So I'm in Chicago, I'm outside, I'm actually on the south suburbs of Chicago. And this is a steak seasoning. It's relatively low in sodium, and it's got some spices in it that are typically used in steak seasonings. Now, at the end of the day, we really want the flavors to be impregnated in this. So you can use this steak seasoning, or you make your own. You can just put some equal parts of onion and garlic powder, and a little pinch of salt and some paprika. But I'm using that. And then a teaspoon of paprika, some agave syrup, tomato paste, and some more liquid smoke. So I put that in a little bowl and whisked it all up So then it becomes this kind of red marinade. Now, you want to marinate your steaks for about 4 to 6 hours in the refrigerator. Turn them a couple of times. You can even marinate them overnight. So make them the day before. And then what you're going to do, so I've got one made here that's been marinating now. This has actually been marinating for a couple of days, so it's no big problem. And then I'm going to take the marinade, I'm going to take the steak, and now I'm going to char it a little bit. I just want to caramelize the outside of the steak a little bit, give it that little bit of a color, right? The marinade, since there's no meat. Typically in meats, you're never going to eat the marinade, but with this, you can use this as a steak sauce. Put a little hot sauce in this to get a little bit of spice, and you can pour this right over the steak. I'm going to heat some up in my same pan as you see right here. So I'm just going to keep letting this cook. I'm going to turn my heat up a little bit. There are two parts of this meal are a baked potato and some broccoli, kind of the classic quintessential steak dinner. So what I've got is I've got a baked potato all cooked up, and I'm going to keep my eye on this steak here, and it's just starting to caramelize a little bit. And it really kind of depends on how caramelized on the outside you want it. Do you want it really brown? It's really up to you. So I'm going to take my baked potato, kind of the classic way of serving a baked potato, and open that baked potato up, right? And then I've got some sour cream. Now, we are dairy-free, so my sour cream recipe is a vegan recipe. That recipe is also included with my vegan steak recipe. And in this little jar here, I've got silken tofu, lemon juice, salt, and some agave syrup. And then we just use my immersion blender and just blend it all up so it's kind of this nice creamy texture. And then I just take a little bit of my sour cream and plop that in the middle of the baked potato. I'm going to take a look at my steak here. It's getting nice and charred on the outside. Little bit of brown. We're going to put that on my plate. I'm going to gather up some of my marinades, pour that right on the top. You can serve this with a vegan steak sauce. We want to make sure your steak sauce is vegan. Some steak sauces have Worcestershire in them. Worcestershire typically is made with anchovies, so we don't want that in our diet, but there are vegan Worcestershire sauces as well. And what meal isn't complete without some wonderful broccoli? And really easy. It's about 3 or 4 minutes. You steam some broccoli in about an inch of water in the pot here. That's all. I just put it like right in about that inch of water. And my broccoli, I like to throw a little bit of nutritional yeast on the top of my broccoli, add that cheesiness. And doesn't that look amazing? Doesn't that remind you of just a quintessential steak dinner for Valentine's Day? So here's to the loves of your life. Love you guys all. And for my darling, I love you. And my heart does too. All right. Thanks a lot, folks. Have a great rest of your day, and hope you have a great Valentine's Day with the love of your life. Now to Carolyn in Mobile, Alabama. Take it away, Carolyn.
I'm in Montgomery, Alabama, but thanks, Mark.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's okay, Montgomery. And when the moon hits your eye like a big cauliflower, that's amore. There we go. That's all my singing today. Okay. So I am making cauliflower steaks, and it looks like Mark and I have very similar ideas for Valentine's Day and for heart health. So steaks, and Mark's was more traditional steak with potatoes and broccoli. Mine will be more of a North African, Middle Eastern flair on steaks with cauliflower. So cauliflower steaks, they are not going to taste as much like meat or a meat replacer as Mark's will, making the seitan, but cauliflower steaks, I think they're only called steaks because we cut them in big slabs, but other than that, they're not, that's not the same. So we're going to start with a very large cauliflower. You want to find a really big cauliflower because you can get more steaks out of it. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So what you want to do is cut the bottom stem. I lost a little part of it right there. You want to cut some of the stem off, but not all of it. You definitely want to keep the core. And then we'll pull off the outer leaves that you see, and not really sure if they're edible, and I've always wondered about that. So, okay, this cauliflower is falling apart. So I'm going to take a really big knife and cut right down the middle. So find the middle of your cauliflower and then carefully cut right down the middle. So in keeping the cauliflower steaks together as steaks, you want to see that big core piece in here. That's going to help hold it together. So I'm going to cut one steak off of this side and one steak from the other side, about 3/4 of an inch wide. So it's the core that helps hold it together in this big steak. I'll put that on the plate. And then as you see, there is not enough core left in the rest of it to make another steak. So you can take all the rest of this cauliflower and make buffalo cauliflower wings out of it, or just roast it. And it is also delicious that way, but making it into big slabs makes them steaks. So I'm gonna cut the other side here, about 3/4 of an inch thick. There we go. And this is holding together beautifully because it has so much of that core still intact. And the rest of it just fell apart. So that will not be able to get 4 steaks out of this cauliflower, which is why when you look at the recipe, it says 1 or 2 cauliflowers, depending on how many people you're trying to serve. So if you want 4 steaks out of it, you might need 2 cauliflowers. And if I had found a much bigger cauliflower, I might have been able to get 4 out of it. So, okay, I'm going to move this aside. And then we'll look at our big planks of cauliflower right here. So our cauliflower steaks need to get some spice added to them. So I just have vegetable broth, and I'm going to brush the vegetable broth over both sides. This is instead of using oil. So you can just use vegetable broth instead. And if you want to, you can flip it over and do the other side. And I'm using a low sodium vegetable broth on both sides. And then we'll sprinkle a little bit of seasoning on it. So what we're going with today is sort of a Middle Eastern flair. So I'm doing a little bit of salt and pepper on each side. You could use no salt. If you don't want to use salt, that's fine. If you do use salt, make sure it's iodized. And then we're adding a little bit of onion powder, a little garlic powder. You could also flip this over and do the same thing on the other side with your seasoning. And then, in keeping with the theme, so I didn't use beets today like so many of our instructors did earlier, but I am going with a red theme, which is harissa seasoning. So you can buy already prepared harissa seasoning in most major grocery stores. They'll sell this. This one is a Frontier Co-op brand. There are several other brands out there I've seen recently that you're going to use harissa seasoning. I have also included as a little bonus on my recipe, when you see the recipe on our page, to make your own harissa seasoning. So traditionally harissa seasoning it's probably from Tunisia, Northern Africa, but most North African and Middle Eastern kitchens are going to have harissa seasoning. So, but it's red, it's beautiful, and in keeping with our Valentine's and heart theme, it's bright red. So it's usually made with chili powders, dried garlic, salt, and oil. But in this case, we're not using oil, we're just using the powder. So you can find harissa paste, and when it's a paste, it probably has oil. So we'll take that and put it in the oven, and that will go for about 20 minutes at 400 degrees. So I've already made some. You see how absolutely beautiful they are. That nice deep golden color, and they are fork tender. So you should just be able to stick a fork in them. If they're starting to get a little too dark before getting completely tender, you could tent them with some parchment paper or some aluminum foil. And then we'll set those aside to stay warm in the oven. We're going to have them today with a beautiful freekeh, a jeweled freekeh pilaf. So what is freekeh, you ask? Freekeh is young green durum wheat that's been roasted and then rubbed to expose the nutty green grain inside. And this is freekeh that I found at Whole Foods. A lot of major grocery stores carry freekeh, but it is wheat, and it's a young, tender durum wheat. So it is really delicious and extremely high in fiber and protein. One serving has 5 grams of fiber, 5 grams of protein. So it's really delicious too, it has a nutty crunch to it. So to start out with, we're going to take a nice hot pan. Let me move my cauliflower out of the way. And we will take onion. So it's just about half a cup of onion. Put that in the hot pan. A couple cloves of garlic. And a half of a red bell pepper. Already diced. And we'll let that cook for just a little bit. If it starts to stick to the pan, you could add some vegetable broth or some water, just a little bit. So we're really just going for making sure the onion is cooked. Most of this will get cooked when we add the broth and the freekeh to the pan. Freekeh actually cooks really quickly too. It's only 10 minutes. Of cooking with a lid on it, and then about 5 minutes sitting aside to absorb the rest of the liquid. So that's pretty much done already. And then we will add just a half a cup of the freekeh. And this is the fun part. So this is jeweled freekeh pilaf. The jewels are a 4th cup of dried cranberries, fruit sweetened if you can find that, a 4th cup of raisins, and a 4th cup of dried apricots. So I'm using dried apricots, and these are unsulfured dried apricots. So they're kind of a little browner than some of them you've seen in the store that are bright orange. The bright orange ones have sulfur dioxide added to them to keep them from turning brown. And we don't really want to do that. So these are just regular organic dried apricots with no sulfur dioxide added. And then 1.5 cups of low sodium vegetable broth. So we'll bring that to a boil. And then once it comes up to a boil, lower it down to simmer with a lid on it for about 10 minutes. So I've already made a pan of it, which is just delicious and beautiful. And then you could, when it's all finished, add maybe some diced chopped parsley for a nice green color on top, and maybe even some pomegranate seeds, because that would be just beautiful and bright red, and they're super good for you. They would also really fit the theme of the Middle Eastern North African flair we're going for here. Okay, and then that's about to come to a boil. Okay, and then we have a delicious sauce to go on top. So I came up with this recipe because my husband really likes harissa seasoning. So this is for him. Okay, move all this stuff out of the way. And my roasted red pepper sauce has cashews that have already been boiled. You could soak them in hot water. You could soak them in the refrigerator overnight. If you have a Vitamix or a Blendtec, you probably don't need to do that step. And also, if you are allergic to tree nuts, you could substitute sunflower seeds. You could substitute white beans, and that would probably also be really good. Okay, so we're going to slide the blender over here. This has come to a boil, so I'm going to reduce the heat, put a lid on it, and go for about 10 minutes. Okay, so into the blender, I'm adding a half a cup of already soaked cashews, 3/4 of a cup of low sodium vegetable broth, 2 cloves of garlic, just peeled, you can put the whole thing in, a tablespoon of lemon juice, 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, a little bit of salt and pepper, and 2 teaspoons of that delicious harissa powder. So it is a little spicy. If you don't like too much heat, then you can cut down on this. You don't have to use 2 whole teaspoons. If you like things super spicy, you could go with even more, and that would be fine. And then the part that makes it bright red and beautiful is about a 1/2 cup of roasted red peppers. You can roast them yourself. You can actually buy already roasted red peppers at the store. Just make sure that they're not roasted red peppers in oil. Roasted red peppers in water is what you're looking for. So we have a 1/2 cup of roasted red pepper. And this makes a delicious sauce. So we're going to whirl that up really quickly. There we go. Beautiful, deep red, kind of orange, really, but it's close. All right. So take that off. And then to plate it up, we'll take some of this delicious pilaf. Let me find a good spoon here. Get some of this delicious pilaf. So pretty and colorful. Look at how beautiful and colorful this is. And then a beautiful cauliflower steak. We'll throw one of these on top. And then just drizzle it with a little bit of the roasted red pepper sauce. And then I would probably serve this with a nice big green salad or some steamed broccoli or some steamed kale or collard greens, but absolutely beautiful, very heart healthy. And then you would serve it to the love of your life. So here we go to the love of my life for his heart health.
Harissa.
Yes, Harissa, his favorite. So, so thank you. And if you have any questions, please add them in the chat at the end, and we'll also be answering questions at the end. So I just cooked with Harissa. It's kind of a sneak peek of what we're doing next month, which will be herbs and spices. So, and I'm going to send you over right now to Omaha, Nebraska, to Cody Stubbe, and she is making lasagna, which looks delicious.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Carolyn. Thank you so much for your great demonstration. Your cauliflower steak recipe looks delicious. I can't wait to try it. So welcome, everybody, to my home in Omaha, Nebraska. I am Cody Stubbe. I'm a Food for Life instructor, and I'm a registered nurse. And here with me today is my special little guest, my daughter, Nora. She's 4 years old. You say hi?
Hi.
So she loves to help me make this lasagna recipe. I call it my kid loving kale lasagna. It's one of our absolute favorites around here. My whole family loves it, and we make it probably about once a week, and it's pretty fabulous. It makes a huge pan of it. So it's at least probably 2 good meals for us. So we love it and usually come back for seconds for it. So the topic of this show today, heart healthy is very dear to me because I used to be an open heart surgery nurse, and I have firsthand seen the devastation of heart disease on my patients and how it has also affected their loved ones. So today's recipe, we're going to do this kale lasagna. You going to help me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, stand up. All right. So first, okay, sorry, my hands are cold, aren't they? First, we're going to do, we got 1 cup of red lentils that have been cooked. And I usually just keep them in the pan, drain it out, and then I keep it back in that warm pan, and then I'll add 2 jars of your favorite tomato sauce, okay, or spaghetti sauce. Make sure that there's no cheese in it because we want to make sure that this is heart healthy. So we want it vegan, whole food, plant-based. I'm going to pour this in here. Careful not to slop it out all over you, because it tends to want to do that, doesn't it, Nora?
Yes. It's
Yes.
cute.
All
I'm going to put that one.
right. You're such a good helper. Here, we'll like this. Good thing we're wearing red today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Red.
Red.
Yeah, all red. You even wearing red.
Do we match? Is red one of your favorite colors?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of mine too, especially for February, right? For Valentine's Day, right? That looks perfect. So you just stir it up like this, and then we're going to set it aside for just a minute. Right, Nora? What are we going to make next? What goes in there? Do you remember? Okay, you don't want to tell, that's fine. Okay, so we're gonna make the ricotta cheese that goes in our lasagna. And I love this lasagna recipe better than before I was vegan, before I was whole food plant-based, and with the real cheese. This recipe is incredible. So we're gonna use 1 container of tofu. Now I just sliced the edge and drained it over the sink. You don't have to actually put it in the presser if you don't want to. You can just literally just do it by hand. Okay, and I just kind of chop it up. Nora, you gonna help me dump it in there?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Now we never want to put our fingers inside that, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Set this aside for a minute. Okay. Next, we're gonna have some raw cashews. I usually grind these up in my coffee grinder really fine, and it's 1 cup of raw cashews.
I can, Mommy.
Okay. Ready? Oh, good job. You got it all, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, now we're gonna do, yep, 1/2 cup of nutritional yeast. Good job, Nora, thank you. Okay, now should we put in this? What's this? Lemon juice? Yep, yum.
And then this.
Okay, so let me tell you what we all got in here. So we have 3 tablespoons of lemon juice, and that was 1 tablespoon of Italian seasoning, and that was 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and this is 1 teaspoon of iodized salt. Now, since we're gonna make this heart healthy, if you are worried about your blood pressure, you can eliminate the salt. If your blood pressure is fine, then you could probably, and if you can handle extra sodium in your diet, go ahead and use a little salt. And we want to iodize because it's for your thyroid health. All right, do we have everything in there? Yes. Okay, great. Okay, I'm gonna turn it on. Oh, this one right there. Good job. Okay, let's stir it down once. Don't turn it on. No, 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 not yet. You gotta stay back, okay? Really careful.
Oh, I thought.
Oh, just a minute. Let me stir this first. At the end, I'll let you taste it. Okay? She's excited to taste this. Okay, I'm gonna turn it on again for me. That one right there. Perfect. All right, perfect. Okay, just a second. Let me unplug it before you put a spoon in there. Okay, you want to take a little bit out and taste it? Okay, that looks like enough. Is that okay? Why don't you taste it? That good? Yeah. I love ricotta cheese, don't you?
I can make this one too.
Yeah, you can lick that one too, but not till I'm all done with it, okay? All right. So, and then we're also going to have some kale that has been rinsed, and I just cut it up, and it's about 2 to 3 cups worth, okay? So we got all of our ingredients ready. We've got our ricotta cheese, we got our red sauce with our lentils, it's nice and hearty. We got our greens, so we got our kale in there, and we got our noodles. So my husband is gluten-free, so we cook a lot of gluten-free around my household. So I got these gluten-free, and they're oven-ready noodles, so you don't have to pre-cook them. So if you don't have oven-ready noodles, you may have to boil those and have those ready to go when you're assembling, okay? And Nora loves to lay out the noodles for me, don't you, Nora? And I'm not gonna show you the whole thing here, but I am going to start it just to kind of show you how we layer everything up. So we do just a little bit of your sauce at the bottom. And like I said, this makes a huge pan. So this is like a 9x13, almost just a tiny little bit bigger than a 9x13, but you can make it fit into a smaller 9x13. I don't know if you've ever seen those different sizes. So just be aware of that. If it's a little bit tight, because you want a little bit of room at the very top of your pan, because when these noodles actually cook, they're gonna expand a little bit. So if you're worried about it like over boiling in the oven, I put a big baking sheet underneath just in case. All right, Nora, I need you. Can you lay out these for me?
Yep.
Of course, thanks. Okay, you just go ahead. Remember how you did it? How about I be your assistant? Sound good? Okay. Now wait a minute, right? You push it down a little bit. Okay, so what I usually do now is I take my ricotta and I basically know that I'm gonna be doing half on this layer, half on another layer. So I just kind of mark it as half. You can lick that one too if you want. You want to lick it?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it. All right, so one thing I love about this recipe, besides that the whole family loves it and eats it, is that it's just packed full of nutrition. It's heart healthy. It basically has, you know, all the different groups of foods that you need. It's got, you know, veggies. If you consider tomato a fruit, then it's got fruit. It's got grains. It has legumes. So it's packed full of plant fiber, protein. Plants have a lot of potassium, so that will also help naturally lower blood pressure. One other thing too is that with the legumes from the tofu and the lentils in here, you have a lot of good iron, and the kale. And so if you have iron, that's going to help with iron deficiency anemia. With the tomatoes and the lemon juice, you have some vitamin C. So it's kind of important to have some vitamin C along with your iron to help with the absorption. So that's really makes this a pretty fantastic recipe. Okay, so I'm just gonna do kind of half of it here. Sprinkle in some of your kale. Do you want a piece of kale? That's a good thing. It's just us eating this recipe today, right? Might have a little bit of kid spit in it. All right, so we're gonna do a little bit of this red sauce with the lentils in it again. And just remember, you wanna get it all coated because you want your noodles to completely cook. Okay, so I'm gonna have you just put half the noodles in, just right here. Can you put 3 on there for me, please? 1, 2, 3. Good job. And then the last one. Oh. There goes some more kid spit in it, right? Okay, so then what I would do would just do my last layer of ricotta cheese and then some more of my kale and then another layer of the sauce. And then we would do lastly one more layer of noodles and sauce, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And then this would go in the oven. I would actually cover it with something to keep it sealed in so it actually cooks those lentils. And I just usually put a piece of tin foil over the top. It needs to cook at 350 degrees for an hour. Now, and it turns out fabulous. Oh my goodness, you guys. Once it comes out, you can make a homemade mozzarella cheese if you're ambitious, or you can get some vegan shredded cheese and just a little bit on top, or you can do some sprinkled Parmesan, homemade Parmesan. It's really fun to make. And so this is what it looks like when it comes out. And so I just have a little bit of vegan mozzarella on top and a little bit of fresh basil on there. And we're gonna have some, aren't we? Do you want a little bite?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, let me get you a little piece here. Oh man, this looks good. This is what we're gonna have for supper.
I kind of want.
Want a little piece of cheese?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Is that good? All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for watching my demonstration, our demonstration, right? Thanks for helping me, Nora. Appreciate it. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Susanna Dickman in Evansville, Indiana.
Thanks, Cody and Nora. That lasagna looks awesome. I can't wait to make it. I'm Susanna Dickman from Evansville, Indiana. Thanks for watching us on Facebook, and I'm just so glad you're here. Tonight, or today, it's not yet, I'm going to make a pot roast portobello. Now, portobello mushrooms are a really good substitute when you're giving up meat, because they have that umami flavor that meat does, and they also have the right texture. So I love mushrooms, and as I'm making this, I'm going to tell you how good mushrooms are for you. So this recipe takes about 20 minutes to make. It is so quick, and it is the perfect meal for you and your special someone on Valentine's Day. I sliced onions thick, and then I'm going to add a little bit of no beef broth or beefless broth. And this is a recipe that I have made myself. It's included in the recipes that you have. You can buy a beefless broth in the stores, but I worry that it has really high sodium. So that's why I prefer to make my own, just with water and tamari and nutritional yeast and other spices. So you can check out the recipe. I've added my onion and garlic, and I'm going to let that cook for a few minutes until the onion is transparent. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and slice my portobello mushrooms. I'm going to use 2 portobello mushrooms this afternoon. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the stem. Now, the stem is kind of big, so I'm not going to throw it away. I'm going to go ahead and slice it and add it to my pot in just a minute. But one of the things I do want to mention is that store-bought mushrooms, you really shouldn't wash them in water. All you need to do is just take a paper towel and just dust them off if you see any visible dirt. These are really clean. I don't have any dirt on those. But you know, they do, mushrooms that you buy in the store are cultivated and grown in sterile soil. So you don't have to worry about, you know, other germs on them. So just wiping them off is the best thing to do. I'm going to go ahead and slice them, and I've made it probably like a 1/4 inch thick. So let me get that one sliced. I'm going to save the stems. As I said, I don't like to waste food, so I'm going to just go ahead and cut up the stems and add them to my pot. Now, mushrooms are very heart healthy. They are so good for you. They're almost like a superfood. They are one of the things, as you know, as I age, I love to hear about is that mushrooms are actually, they're good anti-aging. They help with wrinkles. There was someone had asked or wrote on a Facebook site that I follow that someone told them that vegans have more wrinkles than non-vegans. And actually, if you're a vegan who eats mushrooms, it helps with reducing wrinkles and keeping your skin healthy and vibrant. It also works to help keep your hair healthy. It's good for, it has high potassium mushrooms, so they're good for blood pressure. They also are rich in fiber, potassium, and other antioxidants. They're good for weight loss. They also have vitamin D. So, and they're good for brain health. So as you age, mushrooms, there have been a lot of recent studies that show that mushrooms can stave off cognitive decline as you age. So to me, it's a win-win to eat mushrooms. My onions and garlic are pretty much getting sauteed. There's a little extra water in there. So next to the recipe, I'm going to add carrots and parsnips. And parsnips you can add if you want to, or you can skip them. But I know when my mom would make pot roast when I was young, the carrots were something that I enjoyed the most because they just got that flavor of the gravy and they were so good. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the carrots and the parsnips. Make sure that they get a little bit under the water. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in the rest of my beefless broth. And it's about 2 cups. there was a little bit of an echo. I'm not sure why, but it's about 2 cups of my beef broth. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. Pour a little bit of water in here because I'm also going to add a cup of water in just a minute. Let me go ahead and get that. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add my mushrooms. And like I said, here's the little pieces. I'm just going to throw those in. And I'm just going to lay the mushrooms on top of. Let me see if I turn down my sound. I don't know why I'm getting a bit of an echo. Okay, let's see. So go ahead and add your mushrooms. And then I'm going to add another cup of water. So that's on top of my beef broth. And finally, I'm going to use some fresh herbs. I have some fresh rosemary. We haven't had too bad a winter here in Indiana so far. We're going to get cold weather this weekend, but I brought my rosemary plant inside because I really want it to last. And then I have some fresh thyme, and I'm just going to put that on top. The last ingredient I'm going to add is some balsamic vinegar, and just 2 tablespoons of that, just to give it an extra kick. And I'm going to just pour that over the mushrooms. And like I said, this is the perfect meal for you and your special someone. I like to add it. You can put it over mashed potatoes, polenta if you'd like, or even rice, cauliflower rice, which is what I chose to put it on. But just look at that plate. It just, to me, you know, with a nice green salad, it's just the perfect special Valentine's dinner for you and your special someone. All right, this is going to cook for about 20 minutes. You want to bring it to a boil and then put it on simmer. And you just want to make sure, this morning when I made this plate, it was about 20 minutes because you want to make sure that the carrots and parsnips are tender and that the mushrooms are tender. And just the flavor is so awesome. So I hope you make this meal for your Valentine's Day. Be sure to try to incorporate mushrooms. You know, I love, when I make a marinara sauce, Cody and Nora's lasagna, sometimes when I'm making a marinara or lasagna, I will just chop mushrooms up really fine and put them in the sauce just to give people that texture. When I'm cooking for someone who is, you know, a typical American diet eater, eating meat and things like that, I use mushrooms to add to the dishes so that they get that texture. In chili, it's great. And this is just one of my family's favorite recipes. So thanks for watching. Next up is Denise, and she is going to make twice baked sweet potatoes with chickpeas. That sounds awesome. Take care, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Hi, everybody. And Susanna, may I just say, I don't know that I needed any excuse to eat more mushrooms, but thank you. I appreciate it. You've given me incentive, at least. Those look terrific. Oh, yum. So here's what's been happening in the Highlands of Scotland, where it is actually evening here. I'm going to make one of my very just favorite recipes because anything that combines, let's just face it, chickpeas and sweet potatoes, that's all about me. So what I did, I know that the recipe calls for doing 2 sweet potatoes, but here's what happened. I don't know if anyone else is ordering groceries, but we're ordering groceries here in Scotland. We're on a bit of a lockdown. And I ended up with these, like, and if you see, this is the second smallest of the sweet potatoes that I got in my basket of like 8 of them. So we'll be doing some curry, I think, with these. I took a sweet potato and I actually cut it. Let me go back to this. I actually cut it. I held it down on the board and cut it just from end to end. So you want to cut it lengthwise for what we're going to do. And I'm going to give you a couple of ideas about how I do approach a sweet potato like this. We're going to actually roast the sweet potato as well as the chickpeas at the same time. So you can kind of see this cool thing that's been going on in my oven. Got roasted chickpeas. I have roasted the sweet potato cut side down, and strategically, I know Dilip talked about this, I have used parchment paper. Don't be tempted if you try this to use foil. What'll happen is foil will collect a lot of moisture, and then when you go to pick your sweet potato up off the bottom like this, all of the inside will probably lay on the inside, down on the bottom of the pan. It's not really a problem because we're going to clean it out anyway, but it's something I wanted to pass on to you. So that's what I've been doing with the sweet potato. I took chickpeas, I took a can of chickpeas and I drained them, and I kind of actually set them a minute, let them get a little bit dry. And then I decided I would spice them to roast them. So I went with ground cumin. You can see that. If you have cumin seeds only, I would just grind them up and use them. Smells great, love it. And then probably one of my very favorite spices ever, which is sumac. And if you don't have sumac, I've just got to say, get some. It's fantastic. If you've never, it smells, the closest thing to it and the closest substitute you can make that I've discovered is lemon zest. It's really citrusy, but it's earthy at the same time. And it's just a lovely ingredient. There are lots of great spice combinations, but I just took a little bit of sumac, about a teaspoon of the cumin, teaspoon of the sumac. I did a quick grind of black pepper, about a half a teaspoon or so. And then I took my chickpeas, I've done this ahead of time, you can tell, and I just simply put those spices in a container, nice old, I don't know, hummus or something, God knows, and I just shook them and got them all nice and coated with with all the spices. And then I just laid them on the pan. I had a preheated 400-degree oven, and I laid them with the chickpeas, and I went ahead and I roasted them. About 15 minutes into roasting them, I kind of checked the sweet potatoes. I just kind of checked them to see if they were getting kind of soft. Tossed the chickpeas around just a little bit, made sure everything was good. And this actually, I was very surprised today. And it took about 30 minutes, and I ended up with sweet potatoes that were kind of nice and soft. And we're going to twice bake them. So the first thing I'm going to do is find a spoon, and I'm going to just clean them out. So these have gotten a little bit, they've gotten kind of the spice underneath them. Oh, those look really yummy. And if you don't do a lot of sweet potatoes, well, hopefully you do. Sweet potatoes are great. And I know we're talking about heart health. So let's talk about something about sweet potatoes that I think is kind of cool. Sweet potatoes are great in terms of fiber. And we all know that fiber is beneficial to us in multiple ways, including helping with the heart, helping with our circulation, and all kinds of things. It's also very high in vitamin A. Sweet potatoes are. The other thing they're very high in, that's kind of nice in terms of heart health, if you think about it, is magnesium. Magnesium serves a really good role amongst other things. And one of those is that it helps you with stress. So if we're thinking about heart, we're thinking about high stress and that impact on our health. Well, one of those things could be magnesium. So my advice is always eat more sweet potatoes. I'm just going to take this one and I'm going to clean this out as well. These have gotten a little bit cooler, so they've been sitting here. And this will be perfect because there are only 2 of us eating here today in Scotland. And we'll go through this. And if your sweet potatoes get really overly done, it's no big problem at all. If you end up, gosh, I've done this a million times. If you end up stabbing through the skin, it's not a problem. We're going to twice bake them. Don't get too critical of yourself. So just for the effort of my messiness, one of the other reasons to do your parchment paper, as you can see, got all these lovely roasted sweet potatoes sitting here. So I'm just going to transfer those into a bowl, and that's just for my own benefit. Sorry about the noise. Just slide those in. And, okay, this is one of my moves. I'm going to just put the parchment paper back on, because when I go to twice bake them, I'm just going to put them on the dry parts of the parchment paper. It's just a saving thing. Okay, so I've got my chickpeas ready to roll. Now we've got to twice bake them with something. And what we're going to twice bake them with is probably my favorite all-time, most used of the dressing ingredients. And that is going to be a lemon, garlic, and tahini dressing. So what we're going to start out with is tahini. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my tahini because I think it's very special, because it's homemade. And before anyone starts chiming in on Facebook, I want to say something about tahini that can happen. A lot of the tahini, and particularly cheaper kinds of tahini, can be processed with oil. It makes it quicker and it makes it easier. You can imagine they're grinding it up by the barrels, and they'll put added oil in that. And I ran across this when I lived in the Netherlands in particular, and they had wonderful, wonderful tahini, don't get me wrong, but I ran into that problem when I first started buying it, obviously because I didn't know the language very well and I didn't read the labels very properly. And then I decided, well, I think I'm going to explore how to make this. And I just need to say to you, this is super easy to do. Tahini is nothing more than sesame seeds. Sorry, that one's in Dutch as well because I brought it over when I moved from Scotland. And I probably paid, I think, about €4 for this bag of sesame seeds. And I'll tell you how to do this because it is really cool and it's really easy. And you don't need a really high-powered blender grinder or anything to do this. I took those sesame seeds. Today, I think I did about 1.5 cups. That will make about 3/4 of a cup of tahini. I toasted my tahini, or my sesame seeds. I toasted these quite dark. As you can see, it's a little bit dark and it smells really good. I like the roasted flavor. And when they were just off the pan, I toasted them probably about 2 minutes, moved them. And then I just took them and I put them in, honest to goodness, this little spice grinder guy. So this is nothing fancy. I don't have a super uber high powered mixer, but this little spice grinder, I put my seeds in there and I tossed it onto my handy dandy everyday food processor. And it takes about 15 minutes and you want to scrape the sides, but you end up with this kind of tahini. So I made this early this morning and you can see it's just really, really creamy and nice. So if you haven't done this, the other reason, if anybody is doing salt-free or low salt, well, here's what's in this: sesame seeds. So for me, it was really quality control, but that's my scoop on tahini. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to add about 3 tablespoons and be really messy about it. Yeah. So I'm going to take about 3 tablespoons here. Now I'm only doing 2 sweet potatoes, so I'll probably have dressing left over. Oh, poor me, what will I do? And then I'm going to add, I think the recipe says a clove of garlic. This is probably 2 cloves of garlic because I like it. Make sure I've got all that. And then I squeezed a lemon earlier, juiced a lemon, and I'm just going to pour that in. And I'm going to give that a good mix. You could do this in a blender as well, but when your tahini looks like the one I've got, you don't need to dirty anything else up. It's getting kind of thick. Hey, you notice how it gets a little bit lighter as you add lemon juice? Yeah, it's gotten kind of thick. So I'm going to add just a tinge of water. Don't have to. You can play with this as much as you want. So excuse me, this is our good stuff to make our twice baked potatoes. So what I'm going to do, let me sit this aside just a second. And let me go back to my sweet potato. Just going to mash this a little bit. I just pulled out a fork. Not getting too excited about it. It's pretty, what I like about sweet potatoes, they mash up pretty well when they're really well done. And one of the reasons you want to roast these cut side down is because it will help collect the moisture. So for something like this, it's absolutely perfect. And you can see I've just mashed this. And I'm going to take, half this dressing, I think. About half of it in there. There we go. And I'm just going to mix this up. Okie dokie. And one of the great things about this is it's a super, super easy meal. And another thing that I've done in the past, I've actually brought my recipe to this point, and then I've just thrown it in the refrigerator until it was time to eat or to serve it to folks. You can quarter these as some sort of an hors d'oeuvre if you want as well. So that makes it really good. So you can see this is kind of coming out. Yeah. And then let me just get myself back over here. I'm going to go back to my somewhat carved out sweet potatoes. And I'm just going to stuff them. You see if I can do this with a fork, everybody, because that'll be pretty cool. And I'm just going to put everything back inside of it. And have you ever noticed when you twice bake something or you restuff them, there's always more than you think there's going to be. Let me see how we come out here. This is, you can do this with white potatoes as well. I've done a couple versions of this with different sorts of spices and things. By the way, roasted sweet potato hummus is also a really nice thing to do. But this is going to have a little bit of the lemony flavor, and particularly because we added the lemon juice, but we also added that great sumac, which we really like. Get just the end of that because we don't want to waste any. Now, here's a little trick. I'm just going to kind of hollow out the middle a little bit because I'm going to put the chickpeas back on it. Okie dokie. Let me get this guy going. Oh, this is looking good. I haven't had my dinner yet, so I think I know what's on the menu. Okie doke. Make that pretty. Okie doke. Now, I'm going to take the chickpeas and I'm just going to put those back on. I'm doing them with my hands, guys, because they're a little bit hard and they're going to roll all over. What a shame. I'll have to maybe pick some off. Here we go. Now, if your sweet potatoes are already really pretty warm, I mean, you've let them cool a little bit so you can handle them. But if they're kind of warm, then my suggestion would be you can just go ahead and eat them if you're ready. If not, I'm going to put them back in the oven. Now, these chickpeas have gotten pretty dark, so I'll probably pop them back in at 400. And I might cover them with foil just a little bit. That'll just help them warm up. It should take you about 10 minutes. So here you are. I am so ready for this. And then, if you can imagine this, I'm going to take the rest of my dressing and I'm going to drizzle that dressing over the top when these come out of the oven. Oh, let's go for it. They're pretty warm. So I'm just going to drizzle that dressing over the top. And then you can add some pretty things. You can add some chopped mint. You can add some not coriander. I would do some parsley or some chopped mint. And you've got just this really kind of beautiful, cool, and very delicious recipe. If you have chickpeas open or left over, there's a game tomorrow. That's a great snack. So that is my recipe. I so appreciate everybody listening in. Now I'm turning it over. We're heading back over the pond to Atlanta to Shoba. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Denise. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Am I audible? Okay. Today we're going to have bright red beet cutlets. So the recipe that you have is called red beet cutlets. Cutlets are, I don't really know their origin, but I know I'm from India. And so we have a lot of different kinds of cutlets we make. back in India. They're made out of potatoes, cooked potatoes and mashed potatoes. And then they're also made out of cooked and mashed raw bananas. They're sometimes made out of cooked and mashed black chickpeas. I know you may be surprised you've never seen black chickpeas, but they are a kind of chickpeas that we get at the Indian store. So try some of these variations out. But today we're going to make, since it's Heart Health Month, we're going to do a beet cutlet. So it's going to be bright red in color. So let's get started. I'm going to take about a 1/4 cup measure of all the vegetables that I have here. We'll of course start with the beets. So I have grated my beets. I just washed them well and grated. As you know, beets are very high in antioxidants as well as iron. And there's no really perfect measurement for this. You can take any proportions of vegetables that you have, any vegetables that you have. If you don't have zucchini, substitute it with something else. You can use kale or spinach. So I added a 1/4 cup of zucchini after the 1/4 cup of beet. And then I have a 1/4 cup of grated carrots there that goes in there. Then I've taken fresh green beans and chopped it up in my food processor. There you go. That's another 1/4 cup. And then I have a 1/4 cup of cabbage. That is just shredded cabbage. All of these are, you know, vegetables that the kids will love and the ones that we have real big trouble feeding the kids to. So mask it in here, all the vegetables. You can even add, you know, except for the watery vegetables, that's what I would stay away from. But any other vegetables is fair game here. So I have a 1/4 cup here of pureed up peas, frozen peas, just chopped up rough in the food processor. So I have a 1/4 cup of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vegetables. And the 7th one is a mashed potato. I have pre-mashed it, cooked and mashed a potato. You can use, you know, just a little bit, a 1/4 cup as well. And I do have a 1/4 cup of grated raw potato as well. So this has turned brown due to oxidation since I just got it, you know, cut and ready before the class. So, but it would typically be white in color. So these are all the different vegetables we add. And once you're done adding the vegetables, we're going to start spicing it up. Today, I will be spicing with a tablespoon of chopped jalapeno. See, chopped jalapeno, about a tablespoon. I think I feel like a little more, so I'm going to add just a tad. We like it, you know, tangy and spicy. And then I'm going to add probably half a tablespoon of chopped serrano or Thai green peppers, anything that's a little more spicy than the jalapeno itself. Then I'm going to have a teaspoon of ginger, just fresh grated ginger. And then all of this has got antioxidant properties, you know, anti-inflammatory as well as antioxidants. These are, so they're really good for health. So, and then I have chopped cilantro ready here. So I'm going to add a good 1/4 cup of this. So about 4 tablespoons makes 1/4 cup. There you go. I have them chopped and ready. So this will be our greens. We can add more spinach or anything else that we want as well. So now we've added all the spices with it. And I have a couple of Indian spices that are called chaat masala. This may be hard for you to find in an American store or any other store around the world, but definitely in an Indian store, you'll find it. And you'll find this in my recipe. It's called chaat masala. It's a combination of different spices that goes into it. So try it out. It's got a different kind of a flavor that you may not have tried before. So try it out. I have about a tablespoon of that here. And then I have something called amchur. This is also from an Indian store. You won't find it at any other grocery store. Amchur is actually powdered green mangoes, if you can imagine that. So that's what it is. So I'll be adding all of this. And you can add salt to taste as much as you want. So I probably add just a pinch of pink Himalayan salt. There you go. All of this is really, really, really tasty. But alternately, if you don't find these spices close to a store near you, you could use black pepper. Oops. Just crushed black pepper, or combination of garlic and then onion powder, garlic powder, pepper, cayenne pepper, hot sauce, any one of these. Make sure you don't add too many liquids to this because we want to keep it as dry as we possibly can. And the best way to mix it is really not with a fork or a spatula or anything. It's best to mix with your hand. And I have some oats here ready, just rolled old-fashioned oats. And you would mix that. If the mixture gets too watery, what happens is, as you mix in the salt, the vegetables start to release some water. So as you start making the patties and you come over to the very end, there are a few more patties to go, you'll see that the mixture has become quite runny. So you may need to add a few tablespoons of this rolled oats to bind it all together. But this is all it is. And mix this mixture up. Add some oats just like this as you go along. Add as much oats as you want. It'll absorb all the liquid really well. And then what I do is, I'll show you just a little bit, but you have to mix this really well. It'll take a little while to mix it really well because the potato will act as a binder. I'm going to use all this mashed potato in here because there isn't enough. So there you go. So once it all binds and comes together and can form a ball, I'll show you how to do this. I've already made a couple ahead of time for you, just in lieu of time because it's almost, getting to the end of the show, getting to the Q&A section. So this is a nice red color. The beets add a really nice touch and everything has come together really, really well. Take about a quarter cup or a half a cup of this mixture, form a nice ball. The best part about this is you can make it into burgers. You can make it into nuggets as well, or you can even make it into like a meatball type of consistency or small, veggie balls kind of thing. So today I'll show you a small nugget of how you can make. Kids will love this and this can be finger food for them, spice it up based on, how much spice your kids can handle. And here you go. So this I will be placing on a silicone mat, on a tray with a silicone mat, and then baking it in the oven at 400 for about 10 minutes on one side, and then flip over and 10 minutes on another side, and then you have it all ready. Now, let me show you one that's already made. I hope you can all see this. Let me just wash my hand. I'll be right back. And there you go. Unfortunately, you have to use your hands to make this. So I'm sure you can see how nice these look. I'll cut open one for you to see. Here I've made them into small nuggets that the kids can dip in ketchup and have. But I'll plate these for you. Here are the burgers. You can put them between a bun, between, 2 slices of bread, eat them just by itself, break it up and use it as a topping for your salad. So many different choices. And here you go. Let's cut open one and see how nice and red and deep red they all look inside. Here you go. So have at it. These are veggie cutlets or veggie burger. Enjoy. And back to Dilip in North Carolina for Q&A session. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy.
Wow, I so wish I could have some of those cutlets. It looked wonderful. So great show. Before we launch into Q&A, I know that Angelita had prepared her tacos and wanted to share it with us, their plating. So Angelita, share with us what your final product.
Hey, thank you for that. So this is what it looks like, and I have these cute little keywords that say vegan on it, so that way if you're making this for a party, you can put that on there and it'll be easier to spot. But this is what your tacos are going to look like. And I serve them with avocado to kind of cool down the heat from the pico de gallo. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys. Thank you so much.
All right, so I know some questions have been coming in, and I know that we're also watching Facebook. I wanted, before, one question that did come up a few times, Carolyn was talking about freekeh, and I know, Mark, when we did our grain show, you talked about freekeh as well. So I was wondering if the two of you could spend a few minutes more talking about freekeh. It's something that I've cooked with a few times, but I'm not that familiar with, and I know a lot of our audience was interested. So would both of you like to share a little bit more about freekeh?
Sure. Yeah, freekeh, like I said, was just a young durum wheat, so it's not a fully matured wheat. And it's been rubbed to expose the inner green part of it and then roasted. So it has a really nutty flavor, high in fiber, high in protein. I recently made a freekeh tabbouleh that was delicious. And because typically tabbouleh is made more in the summertime because it's a salad, also because usually you put tomatoes in tabbouleh and tomatoes are not in season right now. It was a freekeh tabbouleh with grapefruit, which was just amazing. So instead of using the bulgur wheat, we use freekeh that you've cooked and set aside some grapefruit, a couple of grapefruit with all the inner segments put in and all the juice in it, and parsley and garlic, and it's just delicious. And some chickpeas, it was fabulous. So freekeh is very useful in a lot of different casseroles. You could add it in place of rice, use it in place of rice in casseroles or in soups, or it's just a really versatile thing. It is a form of wheat, so I'm assuming because it's a form of wheat, it would have gluten in it.
And Mark, you covered it in the grain show too, didn't you? I'm almost positive.
I did, yeah.
Freaking freekeh or something like that.
Yeah, freaking awesome freekeh and cauliflower. Yeah. Yeah, so the only thing I'd add is that it has a bit of a smoky flavor, an aroma, and it's simply because the way the outer husk is removed, it's kind of roasted, and then through the milling process they remove that outside husk. Actually, I guess it was really discovered by accident thousands of years ago, after a village was plundered by an enemy village. This is in the Middle East somewhere, thousands of years ago, and they had all this burnt grain, and the people that were attacked decided, well, we don't want to waste this grain. Let's kind of see what we can do with it, and then they beat it, they thrashed it basically, and removed that outer shell, and thus we have freekeh. I never knew about it until this last year, researching it, and it's just a lovely nutty aroma, and just another addition, and quite frankly a grain that I would have never happened upon was I not vegan. So this wonderful thing about being a vegan is you just find so many different foods out there, way beyond anything that I certainly grew up with, growing up on the southwest side of Chicago, meat and potatoes kind of upbringing.
I find that too, that once you move towards a vegan diet, your palate generally expands dramatically. I want to take advantage of the shot of Mark. If you look at his background, he has the Power Plate and Food for Life and several books by Dr. Neil Barnard. So I think this is probably a good opportunity for one of us, maybe Karen. Would you mind, Karen, talking about who we are? What is Food for Life? Who's Neil Barnard? What are some of these books? What's the Power Plate? Could you give a little overview of that?
Oh yeah. Neil Barnard started this nonprofit, and now it's like over 12,000 physicians strong. I don't know how many thousands of members, and we, as instructors for them, teach people how easy it is and delicious. How easy and delicious it is to go plant-based, and that's what I really love about the program. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, Denise, would you like to talk about what is a Food for Life instructor, and how could one become a Food for Life instructor, and how many of us are there, that kind of thing?
Sure.
And I don't, to be honest with you, I'm not sure what the exact number of instructors is at this point.
I think there's close to 300, 200 to 300, I think.
Okay, I was going to say 400 too. 300 is good. Can I tell you? So Food for Life is a part of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. If you know anything about that, this is sort of one of the pieces of that. Physicians Committee is a nonprofit. They do loads of things in the plant-based space. And we, as instructors for Food for Life, we basically help folks to understand and to get a taste of, as they hopefully did. Well, they didn't get a real taste, but get an understanding of the kinds of food and the opportunities that can come from a plant-based diet. This is a little different than a vegan diet because we promote whole food plants. Low fat is a part of it. Oil, I know I talked a little bit about the oil with the tahini. Yay, don't everyone attack me. Not all tahini has oil, but some does. Read labels. And so it's basically that our role as instructors is to help folks to kind of guide them if they're interested. Maybe they're already trying plant-based and they're reaching some stumbling blocks, and we're here to help them and help them to understand the evidence-based reasons why a whole food plant-based diet can be very, very healthy for you. And so I think one of the roles I see that Dr. Barnard really contributes in that space is that the things that we just talk about, the things that you will see in the program, they're all evidence-based. So that's very much what we're about. So we're here, like I'm here as one of the everyday folks that became plant-based, not from the very beginning, but later on in life, and really reaped huge health benefits from it. So essentially that's what we do.
And I noticed one thing, I might be wrong, but if you look behind your shoulder, I believe that is one of the few portraits Leonardo da Vinci did. It's in the National Gallery of Art, so it's beautiful. I could be wrong.
Yeah. Well, actually what happened was my husband was buying, I think we got it at the Prada in Madrid. And actually he thought he was purchasing something else and got this home and went, and I went, oh.
Cody, hey. I wanted to ask you, Cody, there were a few questions about cashews, and somebody asked, I think somebody asked about boiling cashews, which I've never done. So I wanted to know if I've used cashews in making cheese sauces. Many of us have quote unquote cheese sauces. Could you take a moment to talk about cashews and whether or not you boil cashews, and if so, what's the benefit? And I'll throw this much out. When we say raw cashew, we don't literally mean raw. I've been in Hawaii at a friend's house who grows cashews, and you can't eat cashews raw. They're poisonous. You have to do a little roasting. So when we talk about raw cashews, that's what it says in the store too. It's actually the husk is removed and it's lightly roasted, but it's not fully roasted and browned. But could you take it from there, Cody, and talk a little bit about cashews as a food?
Oh, sure. So you'll see cashews as an ingredient in a lot of the vegan cheese recipes out there, and there's some that don't. So I've done a combination. For this recipe, of course, it works fabulous in it. And, I find that if like for this recipe that I did today with the lasagna, if I just keep them dry and put them in my coffee grinder, it gets them pretty fine. And then it mixes well in my food processor. So if, let's say I was going to make a vegan cheese sauce, you may want to boil the cashews for, a little bit of time, or just get the hot water and let them soak for about 10 minutes. And that will make those cashews nice and kind of tender. So then you drain them off, and then you can put those into your blender, and then those blend up really nice and creamy. So it just kind of depends on what the recipe calls for. Of course, you want to try and get the cashews that don't have the extra salt. But if you have the extra salt on there, then maybe, boiling them or putting them in hot water for 10 minutes and drain that juice off, and maybe rinse again would be a good thing for you to do, especially if you're watching your blood pressure and your sodium intake. So yeah, I just use a combination of, just kind of depends on the recipe that I'm making. So that's about what I know for cashews. And the ones that I use today, you want to try and get them probably, not as roasted as they're brown. They should be a little bit of a lighter cream color. I think the ones I had today were actually a little bit more roasted, but that's okay. They still turned out good. And that's just what I had on hand. I order my groceries online, so it's kind of whatever you get delivered to your door, if you allow for substitutions. So, but it still tastes good. So, all right.
Yeah, that's great. So we do recommend moderating your nut consumption. So nuts really shouldn't be snacked on. But it's kind of interesting. So there's a lot of people, there's a lot of consonants behind what we're talking about. As we've mentioned, all of our work is evidence-based, and there's lots of people out there who are echoing what we're saying. We're echoing what they're saying as well. There's a little bit of difference here and there in terms of how much fat is appropriate. We recommend 10% fat calories, and so we try to shy away from nuts. We don't recommend nuts as heartily as some other folks do. But I encourage everybody to do your own research, and you'll find that there are just so many credible people, and just the evidence itself is so strong that eating whole food plant-based is good for you. And speaking of plants, Stacy had said something about fruits, and I'm wondering, Stacy, especially in the winter, those of us who are in the northern hemisphere, those of us who are in the northern part of the northern hemisphere, would be kind of jealous of some of the fruits you have in your background. Can you talk about? You mentioned, and I know you've privately told me, but you haven't told everybody else about your source for tropical fruits, and can you maybe pick a couple out that we may not know about and talk about them?
Yes. So in my biography for this So Many Cooks in the Kitchen, you might notice where it says, I would rather be in Hawaii or in Kauai than here where I am, where it's 11 degrees today in Indiana. It's just so cold. And I really, truly think and believe that I was born to live in warm climates. And I just love tropical fruits so much. And so I have two sources that you can order online for tropical fruit to keep you going through the harsh winters, or even if you live somewhere tropical and you want some different stuff to try, you can order online and they ship. I'm not sure about, I'm pretty sure they ship outside of the United States as well. But the first one is called tropicalfruitbox.com. And then the second one, and the one that I usually get from, is miamifruit.com. miamifruit.com or .org. I can't remember. I'm sorry. Check that out though. Miami Fruit Box is what you can Google, and the URL should pop up. But I get a subscription box. You can make it, you can just do a single order, or you can order every week or every 2 weeks or whatever you want to do. But a few of the things that I have right now, I just got a shipment in today, actually, is this right here. These are called sapodillas. Now, if you've never had sapodilla, you can get them on from both Miami Fruit and from the Tropical Fruit Box. But these things are literally like eating brown sugar. They are so sweet and delicious. You have to make sure that they get completely ripe. So they come hard like a potato, but then once they're very, very, very soft and give with your thumb, they literally are like eating brown sugar. They're so divine. And I just came across a recipe called sapodilla crumble. So it's like I don't know, I'm going to make like some sort of oat crust to go on top, and I'm going to bake it. But I usually just eat all of these things raw. A few others. These are white guava. So when I cut into this will be white. They have little crunchy seeds on the inside. I usually get pink guava from Miami Fruit Box, but they're just packed with different antioxidants. And when we want to boost our immune system, eating these different spices that we're talking about and trying new foods, this is diversifying our gut microbiome, increasing our immune function. So I like to get all these different fruits and all the different colors of each, different varieties of each fruit. So Dilip, I know you love citrus. So a Meyer lemon has different microbes than a navel orange, which has different microbes than a tangerine. So like getting different varieties of all different types of foods and fruits and veggies is really awesome. So that's guava. It's like crunchy, kind of like an apple / pear. And then this is a green, this is a green papaya. I've never had a green papaya, so I'm not going to cut into it yet because I don't think it's perfectly ripe, but I'm assuming it's green on the inside, and I'm so excited about this one. So
Stacey,
I
I've had green papaya. It's a common dish. I used to go to Hawaii every other year, and it's a very common salad. And what they do is they grate it and they mix it with some lemon juice and some jalapeno. It's very, very good. And you can choose how hot, not necessarily jalapeno, it could be red pepper. You can choose how hot it is. It's really good.
Oh, I cannot wait. I cannot wait. I'm so excited.
I make a green papaya salad with my Thai basil fried rice.
Oh, yummy.
Just like what Dilip was mentioning. Yeah, just grated and with that peanut lime dressing. It's amazing.
Oh, delightful. That sounds so good.
And it's good you pitched in, because I was going to ask you next, Shoba, to talk about, both you and Angelita perhaps, to talk about hot spices. And by the way, our next show, which is, I don't remember the date, maybe one if you could let everybody know, the next show is about spices and seasonings, so that'll be really exciting. But I was hoping, Shoba, you and maybe Angelita, I'll add Angelita here too, can talk a little bit about spices, because you talked about, one or both of you talked about jalapeno, and I know that I tell my students that don't touch your contact lenses after touching jalapeno, and if you're sensitive, use gloves. So could you both share a little bit about some of the benefits and some of the hazards, and how you can be careful cooking with hot spices, hot peppers? And they all taste so different from each other, right?
Absolutely.
Serrano is different from jalapenos, different from any number of other ones.
Yeah, I have a couple of, and then we have the Thai chilies that we use as well. In a lot of the Thai cooking as well as Indian cooking. So like Dilip was mentioning, these jalapenos, some of them are really, really spicy. It just depends. Sometimes you can get one that's not as spicy, but sometimes you can get one that's really spicy. But what happens is, if you don't want it too spicy, the best thing to do is remove the insides, like the seeds and the white part inside. You can just cut it up and make sure you don't touch it with your hands, just like what Dilip was mentioning, because if you touch your face or any part of your body, it's going to really, really burn. So lips or anywhere sensitive, it's really not a good experience. So don't ever, or you can even wear gloves as you cut this, or you can use a chopper. I have these, this little small, pull cord choppers. Those are good to use too, and use a spoon to scoop it out. So don't ever use your hand to touch any of these. But I wanted to show you, I got these really, really pretty red jalapenos at the Mexican grocery store last weekend, and I just loved their color. There was a big pile of these red ones, and I said, I've got to get a few of these just for color. And then I have serranos up here, which add a lot of heat. So if you want something spicy, that's what you'd add. So be careful as you chop these spices. Best is sometimes there's another way that I do, because we get a lot of these and then they go bad sitting in the refrigerator. So I take them and chop them in my little chopper and then freeze them in ice cube trays and then put them away in a Ziploc bag. So anytime I need it, I just take a cube, or you can even cut that cube in half or quarters as well, using a big chef's knife. So that's very easy to do, and I do that as well, so that you always have spicy jalapenos in the refrigerator. On to you, Angelita. You have lots of spices that you have to share too. Go ahead.
Oh yes, I agree with you on the jalapenos. I made the mistake one time of removing all the veins and the seeds, because the first jalapeno I got wasn't spicy. So I was like, okay, the rest of them aren't too spicy. When I tell you I spent the whole night with my hands burning, there was nothing I could do to stop that burning. So yes, please wear gloves. And one thing that I do with the jalapenos and the serranos when I get a lot of them is I roast them on my cast iron grill. And so I just roast them, and then I put them in a jar with a little bit of half vinegar, half water. And excuse me. And that lasts me a long time. And then the other thing that I do is I puree them with the garlic and a little bit of onion, and I freeze them as well. And it works great, especially if you're making a savory Mexican meal, which is what I do a lot of. So I put it in the mole, and I put it in the pozole and the menudo. Well, not the true, the vegan version of menudo. Or when I'm making chili, anything like that. But then also in the Mexican cooking, you have a lot of other chilies that are savory. They're not spicy at all. They're more to add a smoky flavor to your food or to add coloring to your food. So I'll be showcasing those next week. And then one thing that I do is I buy the dried chipotle peppers. And then I put them in my dehydrator to get them really dry. And then I put them in my spice grinder and I grind it up and I make chipotle pepper powder. And I use that on my food as well. Gives it a beautiful flavor and it's not very spicy. So that's what I do with my peppers.
So it's kind of fun. While Stacy was talking about the tropical fruit, my lovely daughter came by. She said, "Is that lovely woman who told you all about the tropical fruit?" And I said, "Yes, it is." So Stacy told me about ordering tropical fruit, and I need to do that. And in terms of what you guys were just talking about, we'll have a whole program about that. I think you meant next month, Angela, not next week.
Next month.
But if you don't,
Saturday the 13th. Yes, Dilip, isn't it Saturday?
I think it's Saturday, March 13th.
Yeah. 2
But,
p.m.
2 p.m. Eastern time. But those of you who aren't fans of hot foods, don't worry. It's about seasonings, and hot foods are only one kind of seasoning. So that'll be a good opportunity to talk about sumac and many other things too. I've never used sumac. I learned so much from each of you, and so it's on my list, and I'm going to get sumac. There was a question that came in from Kathy Sabo. She says, "I have a question about cauliflower. Sometimes get black spots on them. Is it okay to just cut them off, or is that fungal and grow deeper?" I don't know the answer. If there's a big thing of black, I cut it off. Otherwise, I use it. But does anybody know? Does anybody like to take that question?
It's perfectly fine to just cut that part off. And if you find that you already have some of that mold kind of growing on it, or it's more of a fungal kind of thing that happens with cauliflower, it happens with strawberries as well. If you take a mixture of 1 part water to 10 parts white vinegar and take your cauliflower, unwrap it, and just soak it in that for 30 seconds or so, take it out, rinse it off, let it get completely dry, and then put it in the refrigerator. It should be fine. You can do the exact same thing in the summertime with fresh strawberries. So 1 part water to 10 parts water to 1 part white vinegar, and just take your fresh strawberries, dip it in that, then rinse it off in clear water and let them dry, and they will stay in the refrigerator without getting moldy for about a week. So, because you know how fast strawberries go bad too. So the same kind of thing happens with cauliflower. It's just a fungal thing that, it comes with them, especially if you're buying organic and it doesn't have any of the herbicides and things sprayed on it, which, that's probably better to get organic, but it also will get that fungus growing on it a little faster.
And that's a good point, because we try to buy as close to 100% organic as possible. I want to assure people in the audience, you don't have to go organic to be plant-based, and go plant-based. That's, eat as many plants as you can. And if, at some point, maybe we can have a program or a discussion about organic, but my family does try to buy organic, and I'm far more tolerant of, spots or things in my apples and in my oranges and, all the citrus that I love so much. I'm quite okay. I'd rather have some bruises and maybe some insect bites than know there were some chemicals applied to the food. So, by the way, I have to mention one thing that at least I look forward to. I look forward to seeing each one of you in all of our shows. You all do such a great job. But picking on Mark for a second, now you have a standard that you'll always have to sing or dance, and because you sometimes tell jokes, I have to point out that the way you're sitting, it looks like Mickey Mouse ears behind you from your poster.
Yeah, very cute.
It does.
Let me spotlight. Oh,
even better now, right?
There you go. There was a question I thought maybe Susanna had talked about. You were talking about polenta, and we could have a whole show on polenta. I'll tell you a quick story about polenta. When my wife and I got married, we had this huge vegan wedding, and some of our friends still talk about it. Some people say it was the best wedding food they'd ever had. It was like a mini version of, I throw this huge Thanksgiving every year, and it was just, the food went on and on. It was all 100% vegan. So that was the best polenta I had in my life, and the restaurant hasn't been able to duplicate it. So you mentioned polenta in passing, but a lot of people will have heard of it, but they won't know, what is it? Do you buy it prepared? Do you make it fresh? So can you take a moment to talk about that dish, polenta?
We actually don't eat it a lot, but I would like to eat it more. And I usually get it in a box. It's dry. And you just boil it in water and let it absorb the water. And it's corn, isn't it? I'm thinking it's made from corn. It's thicker than like, oh gosh, when I make cornbread.
Grits?
Yeah, well,
Thicker
it's
than,
similar. I think
yeah.
it's similar to grits.
Yeah, it's a little thinner than grits.
Because I grew up eating grits. I had a friend in Chicago who was from Alabama, so I remember the first time I ate grits. But the mushrooms actually would be great over a bed of polenta. It just has a different corny taste and flavor that, just to try something new.
Yeah, I love polenta, and I can be lazy. So what I like to do is I like to get prepared polenta. It comes in these tubes that are shelf stable. They stay there for a long time. And I like it as like an additional ingredient. So if I'm making something, maybe I'm making some vegetables, I'll cut the prepared polenta into discs and saute it with no oil on a cast iron pan and make them like coins behind what I'm making. So to me, it's another thing, another thing I can do. Whereas if I suddenly said, oh, this would go well with polenta and I have to make it from scratch, it's not hard. You have to add, cornmeal to water and you have to keep mixing it. But having a prepared ingredient is for me kind of nice.
I've even used it as a pizza, a crust. And Engine 2 has a great recipe. It's in their book. I don't know if it's online. But they have a great recipe. They made polenta. I think they were called Dr. Seuss cakes. So they just, you spread out the polenta in a pan and bake it. And it's about, maybe an inch thick. And it's just good to eat like that. I mean, it's just another grain to eat that has a different taste.
Yeah, I make a savory polenta with lots of vegetables. And just like grits, but it's not as gooey as grits, a little bit on the drier side. In India, it's called upma. So I make a polenta upma with the same things like jalapenos and ginger and cilantro and all that.
Upma is quite tasty.
Yeah, it's very tasty with polenta.
Yeah. Shobha,
Adds that slight sweet touch to it, so it's very nice.
If you can find a nice link to either the way you make it or in general to upma, you may want to post that on the Facebook page.
Yeah, I have a couple of videos of oats upma and we have a flattened rice, just like rolled oats.
Poha.
Yeah, poha. Rolled rice. It's exactly the same concept, but with rice. Oats concept, rolled oats concept, but with rice. And I've got a couple of recipes online, that short YouTube videos I can share with the group. Yeah,
please do. That would be great.
We have a joke in Alabama about grits and polenta that Northerners always say, "Ew, grits. We don't like grits," but they like polenta. It's the same thing. It's just
how
that
liquidy it is.
Grits actually have more liquid, and then polenta can be firmer, made into little polenta cakes. But here, if you take grits and you don't eat them all for breakfast and put them in the refrigerator, they firm up like polenta and you can cut them in pieces. So it really is the same thing, but we roll our eyes when Northerners come down here and say, oh, I don't want grits, but they'll eat polenta. There's no difference.
Too funny.
There's a comment from Janice Zintek-Dorn about a recipe for polenta by Jill Nessenow, Vegan Under Pressure, the pressure cooking queen. And yeah, I wanted to mention that I have a recipe. There's Nora. I have a recipe for, I call it conference call. Actually, sorry, it's risotto. And risotto needs to be stirred all the time. It's not polenta at all. And so I used to do this while I was on a conference call. I would just keep stirring. But Janice's comment reminds me of my risotto, because there is a way to make risotto in the pressure cooker and the Instant Pot. Right. Denise, I wanted to ask Denise, I'm really glad that, we're primarily a North American group, but we would love to be international. We have some instructors in Australia, just the time difference would be hard. But Denise, I've spent a little bit of time, I was there once in Scotland, and I'm so impressed with how vegan friendly Scotland is. I know you're new to Scotland, but there's quite a few vegan bed and breakfasts. Can you take a moment and give us kind of some highlights of Scotland from what you know of it from a vegan perspective?
Sure. Yeah, it's very vegan friendly here, actually. It's to the point that, pretty much, okay, I live in a village in the Highlands, so we have about 1,700 people, but really around the corner from us is a person who does a vegan takeout thing. So he's always concocting all sorts of wonderful and lovely things, to the point that they're, all sorts of vegan ingredients here, really easy to get. I mean, the UK in general is really vegan friendly. But I have to be honest, we had the exact same experience in the Netherlands. So lived there for about 11 years. Same thing there, really vegan friendly. So it's very, very accommodating in that way. Folks are really interested in things, and yeah, they're not, I mean, plant-based is a little bit of a different concept, I think. Vegan is very well accepted. And I'm not sure that it maybe doesn't carry some of the other, the political baggage that maybe it does in other places in the world. So actually there's quite a bit of it here. So even where we are, we're not struggling at all. And so many people, are vegan. But when we were in the Netherlands, it was really interesting because I think, let me think, was there in 2010. When I was there in 2010, and if you know about the Netherlands, like total dairy, big time, milk, cheese, everything. And I mean, by the time we left, it's just walls, absolute walls full of like oatmeal and vegan things. And so the transition has just been like on steroids there. I mean, just amazing. And I think same thing here. I mean, it's very, very common here, to the point that school meals, there's always an option. There's always options for kids here, even, the real tiny kids as well. So it's very friendly in that respect. Yeah, absolutely.
And Karen, I think, isn't there in one of the newer Food for Life classes, isn't there a nice polenta recipe?
Yeah, it's really easy. It's like a strawberry shortcake. So you take that polenta that's in a tube and just slice it and warm it up, and then you can top it. They use yogurt, like a plant-based yogurt, could be sweet or unsweetened, and then they just put sliced strawberries on top. You can warm them up or not.
Nice. So we'll wrap up soon. If there's any final questions, please post them. But in the last minute or two, I thought maybe Cody, could you talk about, so you and I and another instructor, Ella Rodriguez, our kids in the kitchen. Could you give a little introduction to the Kids in the Kitchen and what's up for next Saturday?
Yeah, so next Saturday is our next show, and I and the kids we're really excited about it. I'm hoping Nora will be up to joining us. I was really happy that she joined me today.
She was great.
She was really, involved with it. It was so much fun having her, and yeah, that's just kind of our little recipe to do together. So it was a joy to have her join me today. And so yeah, next week. So all three of my girls hopefully are going to cook. I know Ava and Ella will for sure. I know Ava's got her recipe figured out. I believe she's going to make a tomato basil soup, her own recipe. And then Ella, I think, are you going to make chili? Is that what you're thinking of? Okay, so yeah, they're getting their snow gear on. They're going to go play out in the snow. We got a few inches this morning. So, and I'm not sure what Nora's going to make. I got to talk to her and kind of get a game plan, but it's so much fun. And then Dilip's daughter, New, is going to cook with us. And what was she going to make, a soup, Dilip?
I think she said she's going to make a soup, but she hasn't decided for sure.
Our theme is, let's see, winter recipes, right?
Winter foods.
Mm-hmm. So something that's going to make you nice and warm. So, and then, yeah, Ella has two kids, Mia and Max, and I think one of them might be making like a vegan mac and cheese, and I can't remember what the other dish is. So we're just...
And blueberry crisp, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's what it is. So it all looks delicious. I'm going to be working on getting our recipe document going this week, and hopefully we'll get it posted, probably by Thursday for sure. So if you have kids, if you're interested in cooking along with us, we'll have the recipes ready. Then you can go buy ingredients and you can cook with us and ask us questions. It's going to be so much fun. And so that's next Saturday.
The kids are great. They're so fun. And the following kids show, which is next month, we have Brenda Davis on the show. She and her co-author, Reshma Shah, I think is her name. I interviewed her recently. They have a new book about kids and eating. So Reshma Shah is a pediatrician, so we have them on our kids show next month. But that's it for this show. We hope everybody had fun. This was Heart Healthy Foods, so stick to our power plate and you'll go far. So fruits, whole grains, legumes, which include beans and lentils and vegetables. And before we, somebody's asking, where do we find the recipes? We'll post the link. It's a bit.ly, it's bit.ly/so many heart healthy recipes, and there's appropriate capitalization. So like Mark's on it, so we'll have that link posted for you in a moment. So we appreciate everybody in the audience to join us. These shows are available even afterwards, so you should be able to see them. Does any of the other cooks have any final words before we play our? Carolyn's there with her song, ready to play it. She's a professional musician, so the song she wrote and she sings it. So, well, otherwise, thanks. I hope to see you guys for our seasonings show, and keep on cooking that great plant-based food. Take care, everybody.
Many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen with ideas we're happy to share.